Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the fourth and final preseason qualifier for EMEA. Jay, how we have got a lot of stories to cover and a lot of teams that have made it to the finals. I'm expecting some top-notch games to close us out here and send us off to the Pro League on a high note.
Boy, it's been a phenomenal 3 weeks, and now we get the capstone on the whole thing where, of course, there are teams that have been competing throughout all 3 weeks, and they've done pretty well, so they're already there, but it's about the remaining teams that we'll be able to see fulfill their dreams and get to the ALGS Pro League. This is just one big step for these players with a long future ahead of them. But it's exciting to see who's going to be the secured one today, and then who's going to start to trickle in, because there's still so much to unfold.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic going on today. You can see the teams that have qualified for these games right in front of you, but I think that what you don't see on this graphic that is crucial to recognize, Jay Howe, is that some of these teams are already qualified. People like Clean, Dead Inside, Eternal, Fig Van, I'm just going to list them, Top Dogs, No Fear, Nemesis, and Odin. They're already going to Pro League, so these games have a little bit of a different sort of stakes for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot to weigh in terms of this. I mean, the fact that they're already there shows a model of consistency that has them prepped and ready to take that next step into Pro League. But if all these other teams, I mean, you got to think, well, why are they here? Well, this is the format. This is what happens. But you think of all the other teams that are here. I mean, if you can't get it done versus this lobby, imagine what it would be like in a few weeks when you start Pro League. So no matter what, I mean, this is the format that you're going to have to get used to. This is where you're going to have to fight your way in. And so when you look at the teams that are on the rise and, you know, there's a whole lot to unfold still, they've got a lot of work to do with all those teams already qualified.
Now, you guys might be looking at your screens now and going, what am I seeing in front of you? This is what we're working with right there in the bottom left. That's us. Preseason qualifiers feeding right into Pro League Split 1, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. There are already invited teams waiting for all of the folks that'll be coming out of the preseason qualifiers to participate in a litany of events throughout the year, throughout ALGS Season 2. Now, I know that we talked about the teams that are already qualified, but we've also got plenty of teams that still have to fight their way through this, because even if you haven't qualified by points already, as the teams that we've already listed have, there are still teams that can qualify for Pro League in one very important way. How do they do it, Jay Howe?
You win. It's that simple. You win today and you are in. Doesn't matter if you have points or not. If you win, all it takes is one good day to really get in. So I think that's an excellent point that we have to focus on, is that those other teams, the 12-ish teams, I believe, that aren't already qualified that are in our lobby, one of those could secure their spot just by winning today.
Now, I gotta say, there are some teams that aren't currently qualified, of those that you mentioned, that I am surprised by the fact that they haven't already qualified. When I think about them, I'm thinking about T-Rex and Game of Drones, even Morning Stars, who currently are not qualified for the Pro League off of points alone. Those three teams, there's only really room for one of them at the top, and chances are they might not even get there because there's so much other competition, but I think that the stakes are highest for those guys.
Yeah, a Game of Drones, I think, is the name that stands out most to me. Team that I had seen compete quite a bit, and I expected bigger things from them. It's not to say that they can't get there. It's just a matter of what went wrong along the way. There's been so many teams competing over these 4 weeks. I mean, I know you and we message each other throughout the weekend. You know, there's Game Saturday. The Game Saturday, we kind of have an idea, you know, like there's certain teams that are always going to be there, but there's so much to unfold through those personal streams. And then Sunday. And so there's so many things that really shake up on Sunday of teams that didn't quite make it. But I think the important part to remember is that semifinal points do count as well. It's just you get that added bonus through the finals that we've been here every Monday. So those teams that have done well on Sundays that might not have been here on Mondays, those are the teams you're thinking, how did they get those points? It is through those extra points on those days that even though they didn't show up on Monday, they still got them in other ways. Yeah,
I mean, it's an extra 6 points of games that you get on these finals days on Mondays, which is going to be really nice, especially for some of the teams that are here today. You talked about the 12 teams that are already not qualified. I'm going to double check that number later, but right now, what I want to talk about is teams that, while they don't have to win, still have to place quite highly, because that's going to be sort of a storyline in itself. You might not be competing for the very top spot, or that might not be the thing that you ultimately need, but teams like Dungeon Masters, Uprising, Noblesse, and All Planned, even 3 Jabronis all need to finish quite high, with 3 Jabronis needing to finish at least top 3 to find themselves to the Pro League today.
Yeah, cue either of those gifs that you see out there where they're like calculating all the different angles and calculus figures and all that stuff, because there's a lot of math for a lot of these teams, and individually they're probably doing it. I feel for the people on the admin on the backside who have to really kind of calculate if this, then that. It's like a really jumbled up computer program. But make no mistake about it, each one of these teams has a specific scenario that they are trying to reach. They know what that is, and they're trying to get there. Three Jabronis being one of those teams. You know, one of the teams that kind of surprised us, I think, last week, and I know that you had sent over some notes last night, Crazy 3 for me. We have those days where there's a lot of stuff happening, and there's always going to be different teams fighting in different games, and that's why everything's fun, because there's something different every time. But Crazy 3 injected themselves in so many different ways last week that it's like, dang, man, like we sure are calling this team's name a lot. It was actually really interesting to see a team kind of come on this late and whether they can get over the hump.
Yeah, they popped in after the halfway point in preseason qualifier number 3 and ended up getting 6th with a total of 45 points. So those points did not come out of nowhere. I got to keep my eyes on them. But there are other teams that I'm also looking to, not just for sort of the upset, but the win as well. Crazy 3 has the chance to run into a lot of them, especially since they were in the same lobby last week. Where is Clean gonna end up today is my big question, because they are coming off the back of their second place win in preseason qualifier number 2 and 3, and have yet to clinch that top spot. Well, we all know this roster has it in them.
I mean, you look, that's a team that's like, yeah, we're good, like we're done.
Yeah,
they are a team that is still sharpening their tools to prepare. Think about where they were week 1, week 2, and week 3. They have consistently shown improvements throughout each week, and you can look as recently as yesterday. They had several top performances just yesterday in semifinals. They are not a team to let their foot off of the gas despite them already being in. They are ramping up. They know that this is just the area that they need to improve before they get in about a week and a half's time into the Pro League, because that's going to be a whole different ball game. So they are still refining their skills to be prepared, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come out today and are still dominant.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of teams, I'm sure, and it might include some of the teams that are here today that have been participating in some of the pro scrims as well, and I wonder how much games like that have leveled up their gameplay, and how much sort of trying to adapt the more that you get later into the season to the Pro League style, which is very, very conservative, is going to impact the pace of this game, because some teams won't be all the way there. We saw some extremely slow matches last week with having 20 teams up until third ring or such, but the thing is that in the preseason qualifiers, there do tend to be those elements of chaos that make it through from the Saturday matches that you were talking about, off of mechanical skill, prowess, having great days, all of that stuff that can really play upset to a lot of these top-ranked teams.
Yeah, that's a great point, because when you look at the way that some of these unfold, I think things have slowed down a lot, but there are certain elements that you say that these teams, like, what if we just start picking off one of these teams at the edge of zone? A lot of the teams that we saw in week number 1 with Valkyrie just flying in everywhere, that has slowed down a little bit, and teams are starting to find different ways to rotate in as they adapt to the meta. So without a doubt, I think that we will see a slower pace, but I would not be surprised if we do find one of these teams searching for others on the edge.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if one of those teams is going to be Clean. I know that while we've been inside of the finals at the very least, they've consistently been dropping inside of Fragment East, but yesterday they were playing around with some Lava Fisher. They were seeing what they could get away with, and hey, maybe we get a little bit more of that action today. Of course, this will be EMEA, so as you see the character selection screen in front of you, you may see a few Lobas start to pop up, and that's what we get for EMEA. We are a little bit more, I think that the word is experimental people choose to use here, but I think that the Legends diversity really makes this region have its own game in a way. It's not so much about, oh my lord, that's a Rampart. It's not so much about who is the best, who is meta, but what fits best with your team. And all these Loba teams, they're playing for an end game.
Well, it's time to get things underway. Our final week here at EMEA, where one team will clinch their spot without a doubt, and there will be 16 other teams that will be secured at the end of the day. Let's go.
All right, we're going to check out those drop spots in just a minute, as I'm waiting specifically to see where my boys over from Clean end up landing. But we're expecting still, I would say, Jay, how a very calm game, and a lot of the success of some of these less experienced teams especially is going to be determined by where that calm game ends up drawing everybody, where that first zone ends up landing. And that's the other thing that all these teams are protecting with the beacon right now. Oh my god, I love you, Crazy 3. I love you so much.
Looking towards Harvester, and that could pull over to the other side of the choke. So you'll see teams kind of house in both areas. We'll see how quickly teams try to rotate. With it right in the middle, a lot of teams like to go there early because it's a quick rotation for everybody. But at the same time, there are teams that will say, you know what, we might have crafting, we might have different ways to loot. And we know that we don't have to travel, say, all the way across the map if you're in somewhere like Skyhook. So it is nice to see starting in the beginning. We'll get that early mid zone.
Yeah, nice centralized sort of pull is going to be interesting still, where there's a little bit of variation, especially the transition from Lava Siphon over to Harvester can be one that gets a little bit blurred by these rings, and you'll be investing your chips where you think it's going to land, of course, but definitely Harvester being the slightly harder zone, not only to play, but to get out of if you have to rotate back into Lava Siphon, that we know can be a chaotic area.
I love Lava Siphon. I mean, I don't think there's been a better injection of a new POI ever in Apex, and there's been some pretty cool ones, man. I mean, there's been some amazing ones, but Lava Siphon has certainly been full of intrigue, as we saw last week with every Jibby in the entire lobby throwing down and all. That was one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in all of Apex. I don't know if we'll get the pull quite there. Still early to tell. But with this pulling further towards that southwest, I think we got to look more towards Harvester and the area just north of Lava Siphon. We'll find out soon.
And Cleaner already looking at Harvester right now, going to take off with the Valk ult, I presume, and find themselves their ideal landing spot. The choke that they're going through, though, even though they are airborne, is one that I imagine we're going to have to watch, as they are going to be landing almost directly on top of a team, and they don't know it yet. Valkyrie passive hasn't scanned this, and there may be a small fight to be had.
Well, it looks like they have found out real quick, maybe not the way that they wanted to. They do have some damage out. They have a trade right now. They can recover from this. Somebody just fell down. That is a Valkyrie, so they'll be able to sneak up, maybe. Unlucky here. Now has to clutch with the Eva. There's going to be a couple of pumps. That door is one kick away, but unafraid to do so. Now they're going to come around for the flank. They do have to be careful as shots are now on them. Armor swap is here. Will it be enough? Is Clean, the team with high expectations today? It looks like at the north part of your screen, or the top part of your screen, a team's already coming in for a third party.
Yeah, we get a thirst happening, and Odin have come out on top so far, but it seems like right now they are definitely suffering for that a little, as Clean is going to be able to keep them down and unfortunately go down themselves from some shots. Yet another third party that's already made their way into Harvester. This is some of the danger that we talk about from rotating late, but it's happening so early.
Yeah, the early rotations, normally you can avoid that, but you can see the landing for them. I don't think they anticipated somebody being there, and that really has hurt them. Now the fighting will continue, already down to 18 teams. So some of these teams that you mentioned that need those points, that might not already be qualified, they could be reaping some early rewards from getting some KP for the long haul today.
Uprising is the only team that we've seen so far that needs to do that. They're one of those teams that do need to finish in the top 5, despite showing up in week 2 and getting 8th in the finals. They are still definitely needing a nice performance today to push them up, and it's going to need to be better than the one that they had previously, as we've already taken out 2 squads right now, and they seem to be sitting relatively pretty with the single KP that they got from cleaning up a last member of Odin. But Odin, I don't believe, are out of this yet. There's another team that's gone down in the meantime.
And I tell you, these snakes on the northwest and northeast part of Harvester, despite being able to potentially house 2 teams, it is so threatening. You get one crack and your whole team is like, all right, let's go. Which is why you see normally only one team try to occupy that unless absolutely necessary late in the game. Normally they move to the top areas here. But I think that's what we saw, is the team wisely retreating and finding a different position to go into. I think that was a very smart retreat. There's no need to try and ego check that. You've already got a little bit of value there. Go ahead and get out. So nice, smart rotation there to kind of calm things down a bit as teams start to populate here in Harvester.
I gotta be surprised by the fact that of all of the teams that are in Harvester right now, almost all of them have already qualified. FigFam, one of those teams that hasn't quite made it into the theater, held off at the show. Not the Valkyrie used for some of those rotations if they can get together, but right now are in danger being shot out of the skies. Pew Pew is definitely in danger right now. Should be able to get out to safety, but the rotation at the very least will be stymied until later.
They really need to get out of there. I mean, you can try and fly up and out, but things are not looking good. Double white and a blue, really hard to fight. And unless you're going to get some shots off of this wingman, which right now they have been missing, and they clearly have been missing the entire time. I'll take one quick look up at the top right. There's no damage to be had. I mean, that will come later, but unless you're hitting, the team has to be on retreat. That's the feast or famine portion of the wingman.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult gun to work with, but once you get warmed up, I mean, it's only the first game. We could see them thrive. Speaking of thriving, Game of Drones have finally made it to the finals, and now already are gatekeeping one of our top teams, the team that looked really, really good last week, FigFam, that we just talked about. Game of Drones is already keeping them in check, and moving around the map like this, I was surprised that we actually didn't see them last week, but I'm very happy that we get that treat this week, even if it does mean that for right now they'll be avoiding the action, maybe for the better.
Well, I mean, they actually hold the dominant choke when you look at the ways to rotate in. There's here, and I think FigFam sees that. I think they'll poke FigFam well to see if they might be able to get a crack and might be able to force something, and if not, they'll fly over. But normally you're not going to have a team rotate up from Harvester out and give up positioning to come up there and contest. And the team that comes from that Eastern choke, normally they're not going to try and contest there either because they don't have a very good angle towards that. So I think Game of Drones actually controls the fate of a lot of these teams. And I think most of those teams with the Valkyrie will be trying to go up and over, but we've seen what that risk can entail.
Nice shots from T-Rex up here on the high ground. This high ground is something that we would talk about normally, and I think T-Rex know as much as anybody that in a weird way, this is a really good play for the first two zones. While it may not, oh my lord, Rampart, while it may not be the sort of end-all be-all that we see in a lot of games that pull a little bit more to the west, that pull with this hill as central, I still really like the positioning because it gives them solid control of the mid-game.
I believe that's No Fear, by the way, that's running the Loba. Man, that's, and their comp is not just a, yeah, their comp is a crypto Rampart. So you want to talk about a diverse meta that we're seeing today? This is very different than what we would see in NA. It's even quite different from what we saw previously in EMEA. Not that we haven't seen a Rampart or a crypto or a Loba. It's just the abundance of those characters that we're seeing today.
I love this play with the Rampart so much. You could already see the ultimate used to grief some of the doors, and right now setting themselves up here. This actual end game zone is one that you and I have talked about, sort of the specificity of Legends a lot before, and Rampart definitely one that can suffer sometimes from being a little bit too specific in when she can be used. But with these end game zones, with so many doors and zones to control up here, high ground that you can fortify even further, I feel like right now you're actually getting a lot of bang for your buck until you move out into that open ground, if you ever do. You
know, when we mentioned late games, this zone is looking like one of those ones that pulls to the east side of Harvester, potentially near that top right snake. And there's a couple of spots, one right out underneath that platform, the stairs that are on the south side of it, and then potentially further down. Those are pretty brutal for the teams that we see on the western side of Harvester to get over there. I mean, there's still an outside chance it does pull further east, but this does look like it's going to be more towards the east side of Harvester. And there's only a couple of zones where that traditionally ends. So all the teams that are on the western side that are up on that hill, that are maybe the Rampart team, it's not going to be an easy rotation at all.
No, Lord, this is bad. With the EMP incoming, Khaleesi has no choice but to tank that one. Eats the grenade as well, and they're just getting griefed in this corner. Noblesse may be the team to fall in 18th place. We'll see if these pokes end up coming through, as the multiple defensive bombardments are for now going to keep Sirius at bay. Now looking to poke his head right back in, all planned, needing to pick up some points, make it into the top 10 today. Really want to pick up whatever KP they can, but extending so far is a little bit risky. Cray gonna go down soon. You could only imagine. Gold Shield is giving him a lot of time to play, though, and playing behind the bodies of his teammates even more.
Oh, if they can stick a res. I think that might be their only play, but based on the movement that I'm seeing, I don't think that's a res there. They might have been thirsted as well. It's kind of hard to tell from here. But they were playing behind. Yeah, they had to have been thirsted. That's an armor swap. There's basically no way out. It just feels like you got the team up there shooting. You got the team south. I mean, you better hope that your savior right now is a third party that comes in and pops off. You do not survive this for much longer.
No, it's a matter of time. I mean, even, oh Lord, the meds are a dangerous situation. It's time that we start saying our goodbyes to him. I don't see the way that people are getting out of this, and unfortunately, it's likely going to be another squad falling. But until such a time, we can take a look at the rest of Harvester and how it's playing out. The second ring is closing, and now the game starts to shift. Now we get a little bit more of the specific idea. Earlier, we had sort of this lava siphon harvester area, all of which was included. But here is where an unexpected pull can very quickly change the course of the game, can push people into chokes that they did not think that they would end up in, and really test the adaptability of some of these teams. So we'll have to keep our eyes on the minimap in the upper left to see where this next one is pulling. And it seems like a lot of these teams in the Harvester still quite happy.
How many low
That's ridiculous. I actually can barely see the ring.
All right, this is definitely looking more towards the east side of Harvester now. Confirmed. Now the teams have to start going for positioning. You know, Fig has been gatekept here for quite some time. And they're going to have to force a fight pretty soon, and that's exactly what they're doing. I think they've waited for a good time where the zone is at their back. They don't have to worry about anybody else rotating, although I think that's been clear for quite some time. But it does mean that there's a potential third party that could come in behind what we assume is still Game of Drones, and it is. And now Game of Drones off of that crack are looking to be the aggressor.
Yeah, that was some thick damage being laid down right there. And hey, you got the assault rifle to back you up. You got the arc stars that have already done so much work. Game of Drones haven't fully pushed up yet, though, as they see that dome fall. And maybe there's a team actually coming from the east to try and threaten some of this as well. Even more of that utility being used. That might have been a stick, but oh Lord, it isn't. It's just Jules popping off. Big Them do lose the one. Now, will they be able to recover in time as that portal is going to go out? Hopefully reposition them to safety as Lars is coming around the corner, trying to find those kills as well. You can see the caution with which these teams are playing, though. Even Game of Drones, who you and I both know academically win that engagement, are not taking the risk.
Well, I mean, I think they're afraid of a team coming up from that eastern choke from Dorito. That's the only threat that really happens. But what they do in the process, they know that they're fighting a Valkyrie team. That is not a surprise to them, but they let that KP go. So instead of taking that risk, which I think is a calculated risk, they seem to be worried about that Eastern team that you mentioned. We don't have a view on it yet, but I would be very surprised if there is a team on that side. So what they're going to do is they're going to let that KP go. And with that being a Valkyrie team, we'll probably go up and over and take that potential away from Game of Drones.
We gotta have a moment of silence as in the kill feed. It was noted that we dropped down in squads. The meds have run out for our man with the gold shields, and Cray from from Noblesse is going to be with us no longer, as Nemesis fighting for their own way already inside of the ring. Do have to watch their backs as well, and still don't have the best position, but they're running the seer to be able to clear out some of these areas, get some of the tracking down. Right now, it's working, as those wall hacks really do come in handy. Nemesis going to be able to hold out the team from the high ground, play for maximum control of this weird area of lava siphon. It's a risky spot to hold, I'll say, Jay Howe, as you're very, very pushable from multiple directions.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that they didn't push off of that. They used their ult, they got a crack, but they didn't have themselves in position to push. And now you let that team heal up. Maybe they were afraid of a third party, but that's normally when you kind of hit the go button. Meanwhile, as this zone does close, you will see that kill feed start to light up a lot more when the space becomes much more limited. And now the teams that are here in the control center will have to fight each other before they even have a chance to get the harvester.
Unfortunately, it seems like we're getting some more tragedies in the kill feed. Figvam losing out on Pew Pew this time, as Uprising are trying to make their way into the ring. And we've gotten some great play inside of Lava Siphon, but outside of it, the chaos really is evolving. The one that we talked about earlier, as teams start to recognize that they're the ones that have got to move, and now Nemesis doing the same thing. Really have limited options. You got to go through or around some of these teams in sort of weird chokes to get out back into the S choke that we're pulling around. East Harvester, you called it just right.
Well, I mean, now Uprising, things look pretty good. They were one of the teams that we first saw in the game today. I mean, they were one of the first few teams involved, and they held that. Now it could work out for them. They will have to deal with teams rushing them now. Those teams that we saw in the western part of Harvester or underneath, they will move into here, or they'll fight just on the outside, and Uprising might have a chance to get some of that KP. It really depends on how things play out, because on the underside bowl of Harvester, unless they went out, it was kind of hard to keep track of it. That is one of our crypto teams, and a crypto team can really throw a wrench into your plans of holding when all of a sudden 150 damage is done cumulatively to 3 different player shields.
Yeah, and not only that, the slows come in as well. It makes you an easier target. It is just devastating to be on the receiving end of an EMP that you were not prepared for. And even when you are prepared for it, man, I mean, it can get difficult. Nemesis, though, still preparing themselves for the next ring close, and unfortunately don't have a Valk to reposition, and are going to have to take this very long, strange route around, as they've been gate kept from the north and still even are going to encounter resistance up here.
I mean, they'll have to fight through, but they've got to fight through fast. They have to go all the way around into the snake, where there will be a team there. So no matter what, I'll be very surprised. Nemesis will have to completely explode here to, 1, get through this tunnel, and then 2, get through the snake point without dying. I don't know how they'll do this. This is great that they're going to get KP. They still have a mountain to climb to get out of here, and they have already been griefed from behind, and I think they're playing for KP now.
Yeah, they're, very nice moves, actually. You're going to save them for this moment as we continue moving forward for Nemesis. Still have a very long road to cover, though, as they do not have an easy way into the ring. Figvam, no less. They might be knocked out right here, as popping right outside near the corner of the ring is not going to be enough to save them, as Morningstars clean up that KP. A team that has had great positioning this entire time, but now need to keep fighting lest they be third-partied.
Yeah, and Morningstars, that team that would have been gatekeeping Nemesis from the inside. Now Nemesis, if they can survive that zone, I don't know, it's zone number 4 damage they're going to be taking. They'll have to come through. Meanwhile, Game of Drones have come down from their perch with nothing at their back. Uprising, that team that was in there. We'll see as the fight rages on, down to 8 squads already. 22 total players left. We know a couple of those duos, but a lot of full teams here.
Oh my lord, the damage coming through with that R301 is good. And Morningstars, I want to say that they can be happy about this, but the reality is that for right now, at least, they cannot. They've got to find a place to take off with that Valkyrie, because you are not getting through this choke without a fight, and you might not even survive it at all. As Nisa goes down, Mask gonna follow, and all plan make that look good, but may have opened themselves up to a third party, as from the back, Top Dogs, they are the ones aping this now. The Valkyrie ult might take you to safety. Are you serious? All planned, leaving his teammate down. This is all about placement now. Top Dogs, they're the ones that are going to be collecting that KP.
Remember, it's only 15 seconds on out of bounds now, so they'll sneak up here, and they hope that the teams around them start to fall as well. 5 seconds away from round number 5. I was going to say, get down before you get out. We saw a Cray here previously, so playing where some death boxes are and maybe a little sneaky spot to hide in. Meanwhile, Top Dogs got some KP. They already know that, hey, when we pushed in, things worked out well, but there's still a team on the other end. I think for them, this is a great time to regroup, retreat, and now prepare to hold out this team as the final zone is approaching.
They gotta do it. We'll see if it can work out for them. As, whoo lordy, it looks easy. They make that look good. Going to be just fine here, and actually may have found the last remaining member of the squad that fled before. As unfortunately for you, not that hiding spot not going to be yours. Now Top Dogs, they can play with a lot of cover here. Care package or not. Uprising still in this, though. We're moving us down to 4 squads, and maybe even lower, as the Thermite gonna connect, and even more shots as well. Great plays from up on the ridge, and Uprising, they're gonna continue collecting KP, damage, and now loot to move themselves into this final fight.
Yeah, who needs the Lobo when the entire Death Box garden is right below you? Go down there and feast on that. So it will be just outside here, right dead smack in the middle for the teams on this snake. They'll have to come out, but that's easy pickings here for Top Dogs. The bubble will save Uprising, but it won't save them long enough. Down goes the Valkyrie. Uprising might be able to get a res off, but with only 2 other teams, one of those might be coming in for the fight. Gold Bag will at least regroup. You can see the team in pursuit is going to be Top Dogs coming in to try and close this out right here. Here comes the shots.
They've already done so much here, moving us down to 2 squads right now as Game of Drones is going to be eliminated. Uprising, though, still fighting from the back, have just Top Dogs to contend with, and it's inside of this snake that you talked about as being so ridiculously deadly. I love this move from Top Dogs, moving themselves out. They know that they don't have to control the snake. They can control everything else.
Yeah, they're playing on top, they're playing outside. They have their angles covered. The only one that might be at risk is the Jibby, and he is being assaulted right now. Uprising down to 1 member just like that, and here it goes. Top Dogs able to close it out. They said already qualified, doesn't matter. We're still getting some work in.
And even though Mimu goes down there, it's traded for 2. Really good job from his team to be able to cover him. And Top Dogs, I don't know why they've waited so long. I've been singing their praises since Qualifier 2, but that's the team that I expect from Top Dogs.
They ran through that snake that was there, that choke. Man, they went in there at the right time, chose all those teams from Harvester that were coming out of there that needed to move over. There's a few rocks there on the, if you look at the eastern side, if you're on like the southern part of it, there's rocks, there's different terrain you can play in. I think that's where a lot of the teams kind of funneled through. And when they did, it was one team after another. I mean, you had to go somewhere. It's just, you kind of remain patient, wait for all those teams to do the dirty work, and then you come in and you clean up, and it worked out well for them. But I love the fact that they showed the patience on that. They showed the discipline to fall backwards instead of trying to fight in that choke. They repositioned there. They knew when to push in. They knew when to pull back. I mean, that was a perfect game in terms of playing the end game for Top Dogs.
And it wasn't just that choke as well. You talked about knowing when to pull back. I think it really impressed me, their positioning around the snake at the very end. To take that 3v3 looked like they were in position to do that anyway, but the fact that they're able to do it so cleanly by taking the positions on top and way far out to the side, being able to shoot at anybody that comes out of there, really does speak to the way that Top Dogs have sort of nailed this game down to a science, at least in game 1. We'll see how many points that netted them once we get back from a break, but more importantly, I want to see if they can continue this. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. It could not be fast enough, as that was just our first game, but we have 5 more of those before we determine who gets top points, and already we were seeing some crazy stuff. Speaking of points, check out Top Dogs, quite literally living up to their name. 25 points and 13 kills, Jay-How. That is a game that you can write home about.
Well, I mean, they did it through discipline, patience, and timing, and everything that they did over those last 2 rounds was probably the majority of the work that they did. Sure, there was a lot to hold off in Harvester, but it was everything moving towards that choke. But a big shout out to Uprising. They held that northeast corner of Harvester. A lot of people, I think, predicted that it was going there. We saw a clean kind of get disrupted by the team that was in there. Uprising came in for an early third party. They didn't let it go. They got 15 points. So I think there were a lot of really good things done when you look at how you got to the first and second place, positioning and timing. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but I'd say those are pretty big factors there in game 1.
And it was all set up from very early on, especially for Uprising. I mean, they held that snake knowing that it was good real estate for 99% of circles, and it really does pay off for them, because even though they only get 6 kills, they're just 10 points behind Top Dogs, and that is a very easy sort of margin to make up. When we look at the grand scheme of Apex, 10 points could sort of fly by you with a good game or so, and Uprising may very well find their way to their own game even later on. For right now, I want to see if Top Dogs can replicate their success, and what on earth has changed about this team, because we only really caught them at the end when they were going in, when they were finding these 3v3s, but it was just a week ago where I wouldn't even have seen them in these 3v3s to begin with. They would have been eliminated before they got to the top half, and I got to imagine that rotationally something big has changed for Top Dogs.
Yeah, look, I don't want to say it's too early to tell on that, because I think they benefited from the zone, but I think they positioned themselves well to benefit from it. And yep. I think I want to see more from them when it comes to a less congested area like that, to make sure that this is the team that we think that they are. You know, and I want to go back to a team that you mentioned at the start of today that we haven't quite seen perform as well as Game of Drones. They held that choke up at the top, and while holding that choke is good, we saw that they did not confirm the kills on FigVam. I think that was a mistake to begin with. They ended up with 0 KP and only placement points. And that's the problem that you have with that choke, is when nobody comes through there, there's nothing to do. The one team that does come through there, you let off the hook. Nobody came from the east side, and the only team that came from the north side, you let go. They ended up not being able to get into positioning and get any KP. So 0 KP for that team, I think, is a standout point for concern. And hopefully they ramp it up here in game number 2.
It's interesting because as we move away from the information meta with the Bloodhound, and if you're not running a seer, I think that those pushes do become a lot more mentally strenuous. You talked about how they're respecting the fact that somebody can come from the east. You don't have to do that all the time, but at the same time, it feels like Game of Drones are almost expecting everybody else in the lobby to be playing perfectly. And maybe this game 1 was the warm-up, was the trial that they needed to change that up, to recognize that sometimes you really are isolated. You really can take that 3v3, but it's going to be a mental thing they've got across inside of today, because the thing is that we've only got these 6 games, and it's their first appearance in the finals. It's the first time in a lobby like this. Maybe this next ring poll will tell a different story.
Everything in the open here, you'll see a lot of teams move towards no name, just east of Frag East, but we have seen more zones ever since we saw the reconstructed area here at the far east. A lot of teams now know there's blue boxes that are more towards that choke on the far eastern side of things that work out really well to hold that. A lot of teams get there early, and then they know that they can't be pushed. The only team that you really have the threat from is Overlook. That would be the most likely early read, but if it does come down later, it does have a chance to pull up towards Overlook. But all of those spots are going to get filled up very quick, and everybody else is going to be on the outside looking in.
My favorite thing about these zones are the tunnels. Not because I like the tunnels. In fact, I heavily dislike, personally, being inside of those tunnels. But as a viewer, I can't deny that they're entertaining. Any team that has to play going from Geyser through to Overlook is in an extreme amount of danger, and we're gonna have to look out for that, as maybe Illuminari are gonna be a team making their way up through there. Having landed all the way over here at Big Mod, they're gonna get some nice loot, but didn't have a great performance in game one from a team all full of Spaniards. J-How, I gotta say, no bias, I'm expecting them to do great things.
We all know the truth there, Dia. We all know the absolute truth there. But look, when you come out of Big Mod, you are one of the more looted teams when it comes to availability for juiced up guns. That's where your time really shines. They do need to rotate through Geisner. I think if they can get through early and maybe get into the tunnel, we saw a team like Noble and NA, they like to hold that tunnel and then play for the later game and control a lot of that. There is room for a couple of teams, so you do have to be careful on when you go and how safe you feel going in there in case there is a gunfight. Else you need to move towards that open area choke that's slightly to the west. So if you're going to go, you got to go early. Else you're going to have to potentially find your way around or fly up and over if you're a Valkyrie team.
Speaking of early, I think we got to address Game of Drones right now. They granted, are quite far away from the ring pull, but haven't actually made a move just yet. And that, I think, speaks volumes about the playstyle that they're going for this game. Maybe looking to play a little bit more edge, as rotation's going to continue happening through Geyser this time, playing a little bit less of the we want to fight you game, as Morning Stars really want to fight somebody, but can't quite get that knock.
Some early action towards this choke with Dead inside. They might be that team that does hold the tunnel here. This works out really well for them. You can see how aggressively they are using the Valkyrie tack just to buy space. They want to get in early. It might have been shots that will be returned. Let's see if they do find company. But holding this northern part of the tunnel is exactly where you can really, really make things work in your favor. We also have Stanny with the Loba. Remember, you can steal one item at a time per ult out of that vault.
Might be something they can use to get a little extra loot, as it seems like right now, right outside, there may be a little bit of another of a fight that they can get themselves involved in. Loba ult here going to go down to give 3 Jabronis a little bit more sustain inside. Haven't gotten the chance to see them just yet, but this is the team that has to perform the best today to make it in, outside of any team that would have to win, of course. This team does need to make it into the top 3 squads, and there is a lot of pressure on 3 Jabronis to be able to make it all the way through to that late game that has already been so difficult for so many of these teams.
All right, Dia, let's talk about this. There's only so much loot for a Loba ult, okay?
That's true.
So you could theoretically get into a spot early, grab all the ammo, and throw it on the ground. And then the rest of the Lobas that come in don't have access to ammo. Now, maybe some of the attachments and the shield cells, sure. But think about if there's a Loba in there and you just say, grab all the ammo, throw it on the ground. Now it's a matter of loot. Now, your Loba value, sure. But think about if there's a Loba in there and you just say, grab all the ammo, throw it on the ground. Now it's a matter of loot. Now, your Loba value might not be as valuable. It's a weird conundrum in the world of Loba.
Yeah, it's a game of chess that Lobas play just within themselves as to who's gonna Loba ult first. When are we gonna have this off cooldown? Morning Stars are trying desperately over on the other side with their own Loba to play a little bit more of the game of checkers, just straight up fight us, and we'll see who comes out on top. They've got a lot of pent up aggression from last game, but there is a lot waiting for them in the future. As on these rotations from Geyser are going to be anything but easy. We can already see, I was gonna say up north towards No Name we're getting a lot of fighting, but surprisingly I would say we're getting fighting and landslide, which is way far out.
Teams rotating in edge of zone. I think, you know, occasionally you'll have these teams fight on the edge, but whoever they're fighting wants none of the business. They're just saying, you know what, like, we need to rotate in. We don't know their economy, we don't know what shields that they have, but T-Rex has done enough to scare them out. Probably a team, it looks like it's Top Dogs, never mind, a team that definitely wouldn't be scared, but they do not value fighting on edge. They're trying to make their way into zone much earlier.
And they are not nearly as well looted up as we saw last game either. Top Dogs, I think, you know, wanting to play a little bit more safe right now since they've already had that pop-off game. A lot of Apex can become about, of course, how high can you make your highs, but also about mitigating the risks that you take that can leave you in a spot like 20th that is still available. We still haven't had a squad go out yet, despite the fact that we've seen some very heavy fighting inside of No Name. We've seen shots constantly being fired by Morningstars. Nobody's actually found the kill, and that means that going out, even right now, even what might seem or feel very late in the game to a lot of teams, is still leaving you with 0 points.
Like Crazy 3 has a really good position right now. This is the choke where you can gatekeep a lot of teams. Your only real fear is to the right of them or to the west, depending on how you're looking at it. And normally the teams coming from the west or the choke directly beside you, they don't want to push there because they know if they don't take that fight cleanly, a team can come up from Geyser and instantly third party. So you normally see a team in that choke remain somewhat untouched for quite some time, barring something kind of out of the ordinary happen. So Crazy 3 does control in a similar fashion to what we saw of Game of Drones last time, but in a much more aggressive position for a lot more opportunities to manufacture some KPs. So for Crazy 3, we talked about them at the start of the day, potential to pop off at any moment. I think they put themselves in position to maybe do more. One of our teams, our second place team from last game, Uprising, might be out early, and they are.
Not going to have the opportunity to do enough, as Lars is the one that clutches that with the 1v1 at the very end. Rats, a team that is one of those that needs to win today, is also looking for the push here, potentially onto Lars, who just managed to win that already. You can see the knocks inside. Will they be able to actually find this kill? The answer is likely. We'll see how much that works out for them, as right now they take out 2 members of Game of Drones. They're looking for Lars, but the Valkyrie ult has him long gone.
Kind of wondered if they would get away. All right, they're full shields.
Didn't get the banners. That's so sad.
I think it was going to be impossible. I think they needed the door held by one player, and then not only that, those players are able to hold the door physically with their body. Whether Game of Drones goes back for that seems unlikely, and more so now that Rats has a good idea. And with this zone safely near Rats, I don't think they're willing to let it go. But if you're Rats, how long are you willing to play for 1 KP as opposed to play for positioning? Because you still have to make it into zone. You did not third party at a right. Oh, I take that back. They did get 2 KP. My mistake. But I mean, how much more do you commit towards 1 KP? I think they already have another team coming up to Epicenter, by the way.
Yeah, oh Lord, I think they've sniffed it out as well. This may just be the very end of Lars's up in the north. We've still got several teams that are looking to make their way, and I think Top Dogs are the ones that are hanging out in Fragment West as well. That's the last place that we saw them going. Everybody else very nicely positioned in Overlook or No Name, as Noblesse are trying to root out some of their next door neighbors, get themselves a little bit more safe. Seems like they will have done so. Cracks come through, but it's to buy time for this reposition. Talk to me about this reposition, J-How, because it seemed like they had a nice spot before, but this one,
I think we know now.
A little bit more aggressive, yeah.
Well, answered and delivered here right at the get-go. That's one way, just kind of sail your way out of the sky. That actually worked out really well on that respawn. So there's your answer. I don't even have to say a word. All action.
So sitting there going, it's more edge, but the 1 KP, it looks delicious. I don't think they ended up getting it, although we did see some other knocks inside of the kill feed. I believe we've got some charged up sentinels in this corner of the map, as that was what was showing up for me on top of Shax. Talk about no name, though. We got to think about the fact that there is a seer up in there. We got the chance to see that just a moment ago, and I've been a really big fan of how Nemesis have adapted this time in using that seer.
Eternal is that team holding that choke near Overlook, but between No Name. This was the choke I mentioned at the start that has become one of the more dominant positions, if you will. Before that tunnel that was there, that wall used to be a natural barrier, and a team like TSM used to heavily prioritize that because they know nobody could push and there's a lot of terrain to play around. Now there's a few more avenues that have opened up, and it is still dominant, but the team from Overlook is really the only team that is your big threat. And as we look at the next zone, it does seem to be pulling more and more towards this outer area as opposed to No Name.
And Top Dogs are going to have to give up their spot that we saw over at Epicenter, and a lot of teams are going to have to relocate as well. I mean, Top Dogs, yeah, like we said, over by Epicenter, are still gatekeeping for now, but moving in towards No Name, I think they're going to find that a lot of the real estate is already taken. This was called very early by the majority of teams inside of this lobby, and it'll be difficult to find yourself a home, maybe having to cohabitate underneath a building or something like that. But for right now, whoo, Lord, finding the cracks from way far away. Nemo might be evoing himself a little bit faster than we'd expected.
30-30, not the most common, but when it hits, man, it hits. And right there, making a pretty good case on why it might be used. And you mentioned cohabitating in the two-story buildings. I think eventually you have to. Right now, I think teams are willing to play a little bit slower. You know, if we're in NA, we know those doors are locked everywhere with caustics, and we don't see near as many caustics in EU today as we had in previous weeks. So a lot of those doors are a little less locked, and they wish that door was locked as rats came in and just cleaned up real quick.
That's the second time they've done that today as well. Good stuff from Rats, honestly, to be able to find those positions is nice. Crypto gets rid of a dome. May have screwed up this fight up top. A second one going to come in over the top just to eliminate any of the shields that you had left. And that's a sick grenade from Vic to find the kills.
That was a nasty frag. Here comes another Jibby ult. Bubbles were used previously, so this time it'll be used to scatter. Now Top Dogs, as they've rotated over, they clearly have found themselves a little bit of a distraction going on right now with multiple teams with them in their crosshairs. They're just going to wrap around this.
God.
There's nowhere to go.
This is the sadness that we talked about earlier. What do you do when you've got nothing? Well, I tell you the answer. Rats are going to come up behind you, and they're going to take it from you. Once again, finding themselves even more KP. This is a huge pop-off game for the Rats, as they've already cleaned up 3 squads now.
You want to talk about opportunistic? This is a very they're making the most of their rotations. I mean, they're running a Wraith in here, so can play more aggressive in that regard. You've also got a Valkyrie, maybe get away with some other sneaky plays, but they're working really well together. His headshot there, going to clip the dome for 86.
Really, I'm really amazed, actually. And I suppose that I'll continue to be so as a singular Valkyrie takes to the skies. It might be Lars. I don't remember seeing him in the kill feed earlier, so could be the very last representative here. We'll see if they end up going out. But for right now, we'll be relatively safe. Keep your eyes on the kill feed, though, as T-Rex, the team that I expected to run into Top Dogs, have still run into some problems. They end up going out right there, and there it is. Lars in the kill feed is going to be taken out by Clean, the team that went out in 20th just last game.
Yeah, they need a rebound game. Not that they need any type of performance. A team that's already qualified, but has their own standards that they like to live up to. A very good team, a very dominant team. I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing to do their absolute best. And look at the zone pull, man. This ended up pulling a lot further towards No Name, so not going to be towards that outside. Might be on the eastern side on the fence line after all. But make no mistake about it, the teams that invested in that real estate early in No Name, they will be the beneficiaries of wonderful positioning. Now it will be towards that fence line. And man, things are about to get real hot as we still have 13 teams left and only 1 building that's going to be in a next zone.
Oh God, I gotta wonder who's gonna have the priority over that. We take a look over here though, and I like the positioning of Clean, at least for now. It's got flexibility until the next zone closes, and I expect them to be playing the tunnel that is going to be full of a lot of action. Check out the teams that we've got just backed up in a traffic jam over there.
I take that. I think that might have been a Loba ult on the mini map, by the way.
I think it was.
Yeah, okay. I'm not used to seeing so many Lobas, and I think slightly distorted was my view. I take that back. We're all the way over here hugging the wall, okay? We're hugging the wall.
Clean doing that. The best of all, I like the fact they've split up right now. You know that Knots and Unlucky are together, but Dolph on the Gibraltar has a little bit more safety, is going to be patrolling the edge, making sure nobody comes in behind them, as that's the thing that would put you in the stickiest situation. I think you still gotta worry a little bit, though, as Clean, about your end game, because you're still very much in a choke, and while Caustic is good for defense of that, may not be the best to translate into a late game victory. They got 25 seconds to decide whether this is the area they want or whether they want to play more in the open. And it seems like right now the decision is going to be a little bit more inside. They got the Valkyrie reposition. Dungeon Masters, oh, there we go, taking out Odin in the meantime as they slide in. Now maybe looking for a little bit more around what's already been a very, very chaotic zone. Plusha goes low, though, does get the Wraith Q off in time, and the rest of his team is there to back him up. Dungeon Master still playing exceptionally for right now and found themselves in the top dog space where they really have no place to exist inside of this next ring and got to cover a lot of empty area. I don't know if they can do it, but they are doing their best right now. Plusha ends up going out, and it will be the cleanup here as Dungeon Masters will make it no further, and Big Vam stop their journey.
Big Vam needs a much better game than they had last game. I mean, a team that is likely already in, I believe, but last game was rough just inside of zone. We'll try and put down a little bit of gas of their own to buy some time and space. But now Sensei has, or excuse me, Sinvels has to move in, and they are going to be in target of a couple of teams here. They're going to go over and try and be the aggressor. How are this team actually trying to get out? I have no idea how they're alive. I thought they were just going to get shot out in the open coming across.
Yeah, there's just so many teams pushing here that I guess the focus it can't be enough. No Fear showing up in the kill feed, as it seems like Clean have gotten a few as well, but now No Fear, they've spotted out the two-man that we thought wasn't going to survive earlier. They're going to be the ones to be able to get these knocks, get that KP, and move themselves up to the end game that is increasingly seeming like it's going to be against Clean.
Clean just had the dominant position. That was a visual bug, not a Loba ult, by the way. So what I saw earlier looked like a zone, but make no mistake about it, Clean had the proper read on what is their zone. They played that back choke area. It's worked out very well. They're here in the top three. They'll have to contest against Dead Inside, another team with really good positioning. Team on the left, very little left. So you got to imagine Clean and Dead Inside going to be the top two teams. Who's going to come out on top?
I mean, the last time we saw this zone, it was absolutely decimated by a Kraber. Right now, I haven't seen any show up just yet, and maybe that this one gets to play out a little bit more academically to be determined by ordinances, as everybody seems to have their space right now. And for the next 17 seconds at least, we're gonna kind of be big chilling. It's just about Clean finding their way into the zone for next time. They've got already a space that's held down by knots and the ability to loot up. So really, nobody going to be taking a fight right now. It's all about the next ring, and I would dare say even the next one.
Yeah, just whoever fights first finishes last, okay? That's just the way it is. I mean, so when you have two teams that will engage, sometimes you have to commit. You say, you know what? We have to fight. We have to get them off of here, else we're just going to die. And that might actually be the catalyst over there. We do see our third team, No Fear, getting destroyed by not just Clean, but also Dead Inside. So they are down one member. I don't know if they'll be able to recover. They are actually going to be out nice and clean, if you will. Now it's a 1v1. You've got Clean versus Dead Inside in the final zone, 5 seconds away from closing. And you said it might be another zone. I agree 100%. These teams will take their time, and that rock that is directly in the middle of them, who's going to be willing to commit space there? Remember, the Gibby ult was already used by Dead Inside. We don't know what Clean has left, but that is a knock indeed.
And it is going to be from that dreaded weapon that we talked about. For right now, Clean, they're the ones that got to hang out, and they got unlucky back up in the meantime, though. And they've got some huge cracks with the grenades. Another Skynade, though, does end up missing. Clean are still playing this rock. They've still got gas to buy them time, and how are they doing this so well? Unlucky's going to have to heal up. It hasn't been the focus just yet, as he ends up popping out, popping some of that gas, and going right back into hiding. Clean, they're the ones being heralded right now, but they get to knock themselves. Fizu is down, and now it's numbers advantage for Clean, as they may turn this and take the second win in the face of a sniper gun to the face.
Man, I mean, coming up clutch, knowing your angles, knowing your terrain, that is a beautiful thing to see on the side of Clean. And I tell you what, man, they read the zone in game number one. They just had a really awkward landing and were the first team out this time. They had a really good read on the zone. They were the last team. to not go out as they're now the champions in game number 2. But think about what they've done 2 games in a row in terms of reading zones, what that means for them in positioning. I don't know what it'll be like come Pro League and all that, but the experience that they have and putting it together, making these early rotations, showing a lot of value despite the errant play in game number 1.
Yeah, and you know what? Granted, there's a lot of room for other teams to play well. I think Odin did position quite well there. So, you know, you lose a few rotations, and hey, you're still able to come out on top. We talked about mitigating low lows, and while that was low, this high was definitely high as well. I want to see how it ends up impacting their points, as we're going to take a very short break, then move ourselves into game number 3, where we'll see if somebody who isn't already qualified can win a game. Welcome back, ladies and gents. 2 games down and 4 to go, with Top Dogs and Clean finding themselves win. Clean especially almost having history repeat itself, as I'm sure they were as scared as we were, J-How.
Well, I mean, they were in that position before. Kraber shot came out, changed the entire narrative. This time, they did it again. Luckily, I had an aim assist named Dia come out and call the shot there to bring us in. But look at the positioning and the rewards here for Clean. 16 kills, 28 points, a far cry from game number 1, where they put up a big old goose egg.
And you know what? The roles have really been reversed, because our winners from game 1, Top Dogs, they're the ones holding the egg this time, which actually might put Clean in first place overall today. Really big game coming out from them, and right behind them, of course, No Fear and Dead Inside actually have basically cut their points in half if you look at Clean right now, which is a really, really impressive feat. No Fear did really well, but I am surprised that despite going out in 3rd, they placed 2nd. Isn't that a little weird?
It does feel probably not the way that we would envision that all going, but sure enough, when you don't get a lot of KP, that 3rd place team will happily climb up over the top of you. And with that game, I think back, maybe Clean didn't get a goose egg in game number 1. They got a few points, I guess. But either way, they're first place now with Top Dogs, 2nd, all planned. But I think it's the surprise right now. Rats, remember, if you win today and you are not already qualified, you are in. So a team like Rats after last game, maybe a threat.
I think definitely so. You'd be fooled to discount them where you would team playing in their area, having any sort of fight near them, because these guys, their third-party timings are they are precise, they are deadly, and they are absolutely merciless. And a reminder, of course, if this is your first preseason qualifier, that you don't know these guys. Nobody knew these guys coming into today. They've just appeared in their very first preseason qualifier finals, and they've managed to take this to a point where we're seriously considering them as being able to secure a Pro League spot, which is good for them because it's what they need.
Man, I still cannot get over the abundance of Lobos and the distinct lack of more Caustics. EU has notoriously been ahead of the Caustic meta, at least in the last year or so. Even when Caustic was out of meta, there were still teams that would experiment. You go back a few when Caustic was super meta and everybody was running it. It was right before the Caustic buffs about a year ago, or right before they ended a year ago. And before the original buffs, EU was running it. And then the buffs came in, then everybody ran it. Then they went out and Caustic came back. And EU was the first to really run it on numerous occasions with several different teams. Now, despite NA having a Caustic on every team, there's only 3, I think, in this lobby.
Yeah, it is I'm counting it right now. I think you nailed it on the head, actually. There's only 3, and I wonder if this is sort of a preemptive move, right? To say, well, we know that Caustic is gaining some global attention, and we're going to play the opposite of that. We're going to adapt so that Caustic is not the end-all be-all in our region, so when we go up against other regions, maybe looking forward towards competitions in the future, they'll be a little bit better prepared with answers to that, or maybe they've had longer times to adapt to it. Very clearly, Caustic hasn't really been a big deterrent for a lot of these teams. I mean, I know that we think about Clean's endgame just 1 game ago, and I think that that's where Caustic really shone, but for the most part, we haven't seen it be determinate in who is winning these engagements. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely fine holding on for right now as well. It's a pretty slow early game, and Uprising, they'll be looting up right next to Clean, the winners from last game, who might feel a little bit more cheeky and poke their heads in for now. But there we go. Welcome back. I was just starting to do accents, and that's how you know that it's getting bad.
You know what? I'll stop. You can keep going. I'll listen.
Save the viewers. Save the viewers, Jay.
Well, our champion squad from last game, they are the Frag East team. No surprise, as Dolphin, the former coach of TSM, I say former, that ended not too long ago, as Dolphin put out a very, very nice message about his time at TSM and all the things that went on there. But his desire to compete is the main thing. And I think that this team of Clean with Unlucky and Nags, that they have really put together a solid squad to compete going into ALGS Pro League. And I tell you, what a run it's been for them through the qualifiers to get their positioning. They haven't just got their positioning, Dia. They have just looked phenomenal week in and week out. Ever since week number 1, where you could say was their weakest week, ever since then, they've been a dominant team. They look like the team that doesn't belong here anymore. Like they've outgrown themselves, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, and I think that sort of improvement is exactly what we've seen rewarded in a lot of these teams, but definitely the ones that embody it the most are going to be Clean. I look forward to seeing what they're going to do in the Pro League, because when you've got this level of professional experience, I mean, you talked about being the coach for TSM, when you've already got that mindset, I think that you're looking at the game in a very different way than some people who only have ever played will be, and may give you a little bit of a higher ceiling at some points, because you're already sort of thinking about the next steps, about the macro movements that can change your game. As right now, we speak about macro, but it's a little bit more focused on the micro over here in Lava Siphon, finding out who is where as we're on those early rotations, much like we were into Harvester just a game ago.
Yeah, and
oh my God, I'm tilted.
Come on,
I'm
man,
tilted. I'm so tilted.
We've all been there. I was watching Hal last night, and he was talking about the Valkyrie meta and ways to play against it and make sure that things don't happen. We've seen a lot of teams, most notably in NA, kind of take desperation flies in. And he said, if you're holding a building, it's better to just go out and poke instead of having a team that could potentially land on you. You have fight on your hands, and now you get griefed and things don't look as good. And then another team comes in, it ruins it for both teams. So what we actually saw there was one of the teams, they heard the Valkyrie come out and they stepped out of their building to make sure that it's like, hey, we're here. This is our house. They got some shots, and we saw the detour on that Valkyrie. I think that's kind of the learning curve that a lot of teams have gone through. It's like, do we try and bait this? Do we go out and just declare this is our spot? I think a lot of teams can learn from listening in on things like that, because during the first few weeks of the Valkyrie meta, it very much was a fly and pray and then just land on teams. Now teams are being much more proactive on the defensive end to come out, say, we're here, go somewhere else. And Crazy 3, that's a longbow shot coming out and gonna knock.
I'm not very happy about, oh my lord, not very happy about that one, especially about getting re-knocked, as it seems like this is going to be the end. Crazy 3, they're just getting straight up pushed on while fighting inside of the dome. Adam may be able to clutch this, but ooh, gets knocked. It's up to Kronos now, sitting up here at the top. We'll see if he's able to take this one away. I was actually very, very confused here, as it seems like SAC, they're the ones showing up in the kill feed for one of the first times that this day. They've been very, very quiet. Crazy 3 healed up all the way, gonna be able to get those thirsts. It's okay, it's okay. The SAC, I don't think are out yet, or did they? No, they went down.
Another team was shooting from the side. That's why I was like, hold on now. Like,
that's
I need to count that's all that's 3 boxes there. That's 5 total if you count the teammates.
Yeah,
so
that is
the shots
deadly.
came in from the side. Hello, best friend.
Yeah. Kronos is like very quickly realizing this is not actually safe zone anymore, as Top Dogs were the ones that did end up claiming that last kill. I would say surprisingly, SAC, they show up for a little bit, but now they're gone, and Crazy 3 are left crippled. This sort of feels like the Valkyrie meta that we were talking about, where you full send, you both die, and now it's nobody wins, except for Top Dogs. Top Dogs are winning.
No surprise there. You know, they do have an opportunity, does Crazy 3, to go out. I mean, it's not going to be an easy game, but I think they do have an avenue to escape down, maybe go further south, look for one of those reses kind of out in the open. Getting back in and getting loot, of course, won't be an easy task, but I do think they have an opportunity to maybe recover and salvage some parts of this game. It won't look pretty, don't get me wrong, and it might not work at all, but going south would come by way of passing by No Fear, who's in the truck. We'll have to move in. Hold on now, that might hurt. Woo.
Nice mount into the chair as well, as you could tell he was getting a little worried there, as now they've got a portal out to try and reposition here, take a little bit less of a contested spot. They are turning their backs to tree, though, and No Fear could just run into another squad that's trying to come up from the south. We know the top dogs who do land in Thermal have already moved in, so maybe a little bit safer than they would otherwise be, but you have to keep their eyes out for teams that are not only behind them, but have gotten all of the best spots in front of them, because I'm very surprised that this high ground isn't already taken.
I think it's always difficult to maintain the high grounds when you know you're going to have teams on both sides. I think it can be risky. I think it is a good spot. You just have to be a very determined team and a team with a lot of communication on who's on what side, because you do leave yourself exposed to one side or the other. You're never completely free, but not getting this area, I think, is, unless this was the high ground you're talking about. I thought you were talking about the top.
No, you're right. I was talking about the other one.
It's risky, I think, at times. I don't think it's a high risk, but as things do close in, you kind of leave yourself maybe exposed. Here's a little escort.
This is where Crazy 3 was earlier. They might end up finding some stragglers over here. We're going to get the chance to find out who is still in the area. Is No Fear make a, I'll say, pretty, maybe not aggressive, but we'll call it assertive move into the center of Lava Siphon. Center of Lava Siphon, whether it be here or in the building built off the mountain, is still a relatively risky position because of what we talked about earlier, its ability to be pushed from almost anywhere. The fact that you can end up having to share territory on very short notice.
Yeah, and the hard part is there's almost no zone that ends in the middle of Lava Siphon, and the best zone that you'll have is the one that ends south of it, to where you can come out of that south tunnel and then maybe move into that truck into those areas. But it doesn't look like it's going to pull there. The other ones are to the northwest or the west of the command center, or the east of the command center, zones that are much more common. So taking the top middle is no given. It just holds spot for the late game, but you still have to work your way out of it, which is the most dangerous part.
Well, we've been hanging out over here. It's worth noting that in the kill feed, we did see the rest of Crazy 3 go out. They're not going to be able to play anymore inside of this particular game going on 19th. They did pick up a little bit of KP to go with them, one can only presume, with the Nox being scattered, but right now they're going to have to wait until next game. While Dead Inside, a lot happier over here, are going to be holding, I think, a little bit safer of a position, even though they were having some fights over there earlier. It was Nemesis, I believe, that ended up cleaning up the kill on top. So we'll see. We'll
hey
see.
man, we see you.
For them.
Yeah, I see you too. I don't know whose thermite that is though. Oh, here is on the southern end. Top dogs, they're fully engaged, trying to rotate over underneath, and that is going to be knock number one. Not out of the woods yet. Do have bubble. There was an arc star. I don't think that got in the dome. That could be scary. It looks like Mimu's going to be okay. Oh, here comes the crypto ult. Crypto, the kryptonite to the Jibby bubble when the ults come down, but Zero is going to get taken out here by a longbow from Kazakh.
That was a really nice pan from the Observer too. From the shot to the knock. And Dead Inside feeling pretty comfortable up here. Top dogs, they're going to be able to get that res off. Might be able to stop the other one instead. Now Frag going to go wide here. So Top dogs still playing under the bridge right now. Still very much inside of the circle. And actually, I would say still in quite a nice position. They are going to back off, perhaps due to lack of meds for right now. They've been trying to find a way into this zone for a little while now. And having to take low ground, having been put down near the bridge, or rather knocked back, I can't find myself saying that I favor or envy their position in any way.
Yep. The risk, and I think this is where we do see the teams kind of evolving their processes. They can try and poke and get a fight here, maybe get a crack off this Loba positioning, which seems to be generating a lot of damage, or you could use the Desperation Valkyrie ult, and I think a lot of teams are getting away from those desperation plays. They're just going to play angles. Hopefully they can get something. A third party could potentially come in, but they have to be careful with the push off of this. While they do now have a position from 0-0, the distance to close to get there is not easy, so you'd have to rely on two people going in to make a 2v2. And now from our vantage point, we actually see that team dipping out of there.
I like this actually, and you can sort of see the thought from Top Dogs as to why that position is so valuable. Under the Bridge actually provides you a lot in terms of center control right here, and we'll see how much that can pay off for them, as Eternal, the ones that were under the bridge right now, are going to be scouting as to whether their last spot was taken, see if they can keep an eye on who's going to come up from the flank, but instead going to have to play this low ground and a lot of empty space, try and see if they can hold off teams coming from Geyser, whatnot. As Top Dogs, they're engaged in a different sort of fight, not with Eternal now, and I genuinely wonder who took this spot so quickly.
Unless they took the portal back, which seems unlikely. I think this is definitely another team.
Yeah.
That looks like a team that is hurting too. And I think Top Dogs knows. Oh, nice headshot. I think Top Dogs knows that Eternal could be nearby, which is why we don't see them full pressing this despite getting a significant amount of damage. And I think they're trying to scatter them a little. If these hit 75 on one, had they got another shot with that longbow, could be full steam ahead. Instead, 0-0, forced to get back and get some shields up.
The fact that they've got golds, though, is providing them so much sustain and advantage in these fights. They're just able to win through speed of healing alone, it seems. Although for right now, Top Dogs are going to drop back to the low ground. Still playing this game of very little commitment and very much reminding me of Crazy 3 from Game 1. Or rather, Game of Drones from Game 1 over there in the choke point, where Dead Inside hanging out up top right here seem to be having a little bit better of a time. They can take an engagement whenever they want, and we can see with our wall hacks how exciting that was.
I mean, look, they've got the turbocharger on the Havoc, so that thing ramps up fast. I don't think they would really be getting that aggressive with too many other guns, but I like the fact that they're trying to get a little sneaky with it, but they'll drop back, and wisely so. You know, and when we've looked at these zones so far, they've all kind of been out in the open. I think we could be trending towards another out in the open zone here as well. Meanwhile, Game of Drones, they're one of the few teams in Geyser with very little in the way of shields compared to some of the other teams. So they're actively engaged, and it looks like they've got somebody coming up on the flank. Might not be a full commitment, but for Game of Drones, hasn't been too fruitful for them yet.
No, and taking these fights is going to be super duper risky for them, as a Phoenix could actually getting invested now from Lars might be preparing them for this next fight. Just now, as the ring starts to close, more teams are going to be forced together, although I don't see this as being a particularly deadly ring just yet. Round 3 still does hurt, and they'll have to keep their eyes on whoever's coming in behind them, because they will certainly be weak were they caught in the ring. I like the scan from Lars to keep an idea of who is the biggest threat to this team, but I think the really sad part, or the scary part, one might say, for Game of Drones is that we know they're going to have to move. The zone likely is not pulling to that edge.
Well, Clean with one of the more dominant positions. No surprise there. They'll sit up. They've eliminated their threat behind them by way of Valkyrie ult, and knew that they could gatekeep a team, and now this next zone will let us in on a lot of very valuable information on whether Clean will move. Oh my goodness. Oh, that zone covers a lot. Look, they are not waiting to rotate in late. They are going up and early. That zone covers a lot of the ridge, which means that there's not many places that you can actively stay in. So whoever controls these chokes, where we see Eternal now at the top, they have Game of Drones running up after them. This could be a game for Eternal. Meanwhile, we've got a team coming in from behind. Here comes Morning Stars.
And well, I mean, the Game of Drones is completely split up as well. Rondon, just now trying to rejoin the team, is going to end up taking that portal and being lasered on the back end of it. Morning Stars should have this push in the bag. Yeah, there it is. They end up finding the thirst for right now being gate capped, of course, by the team that we talked about earlier. Eternal really making the boogie up there, a lot like we saw Clean do, and Rats are left way out in the open right now, with Tolkien trying to survive through not just a Gibby ult, but a charge rifle as well. Not going to work out for him. He's going to get taken down, and I believe Rats should have left for right now, as never mind, they've got the one member left. It's just Mania on the low ground, watching his friend's body be ransacked. Not too much he can do about it. Mania, unfortunately, still has a lot of ground to cover, and it's looking pretty impossible to make it into this next ring. For right now, this position, it's about buying time.
I mean, I don't know. Even if you get this out. You have 15 seconds to go in, and there won't be a landing spot for you to go. And this team is still here, which might be even more surprising to me. They'll have to move across the lava, eat the damage, but that bridge underneath will slightly be in. The top spots are really tough. One team is out, another team is here, and it looks like they found it. I mean, they might get the KP here, but no fear is going to, no matter what, one of these teams will make it to the bridge, the rest will not. Eternal now, one of those gatekeepers that we talked about on the other side, looking out. They are on top, looking for potential 3-2-1. And one is about all they'll get is one bullet landed.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that was the most fruitful push ever, as right now they're being pushed themselves. It's a desperation one, but it's still actually working out pretty well, as Fizu ends up finding the knocks, and Eternal, they might just end up straight up losing this 3v3, and they do. That was a very, very sudden push that ends up working out.
That was the fly.
Really no good reason.
That was the fly from Thermal. So Dead Inside somehow snuck on top of them. Meanwhile, now the Ring is starting to get involved in this. No fear, they're going to go down. They were the gatekeepers, turned into the gate kept. And we see on the bottom side, Morningstar on the left side of your screen, very low for health, but they will regroup. But it's Noblesse that's going to bubble push them. They're coming in, see if they're able to regroup enough. And that answer is no, as they are coming in with the Eva shots. Or is it? Cray needs to finish this off, but Cray's going to go down, opening the door for another team to now come in third party. They need to regroup quickly.
That was nice work by Mask to find the knock, and it puts Noblesse, of course, in a very difficult spot. They've already used the bubble. They've lost their Gibraltar, but Ratsu, Lord Tolkien, still alive over here. There we go. There we go. I was wondering about that one. That was alive for a little bit too long. Speaking of that, Noblesse still likely going to go out here, as we'll see if they're able to sustain that one corner, keeping them pretty nice. It's clean. We talked about that early rotate, very clearly paying off for them as well. They find themselves inside of the next zone, and I would say with utter control of this lobby.
Their reads of zones are impeccable. Every team here should be taking notes through. You could get rid of game number one, but in terms of reads on zones, they are the absolute best right now, and it is becoming increasingly apparent why they are the top team coming out of here. Meanwhile, the fights will rage on here west of what's going on. Only one team will rotate up. Remember, the truck up at the top of this ramp is the #1 thing for them. Two cracks are going to go through. Down goes one. Cray is down, and now they've come to clean up, hiding behind that, and that is going to be all planned, taking out another team.
Oh my god, and they make it look easy too. That Kraber really putting out the damage. It's down to Nemesis right now, next door to Clean, a place that is unlikely to be pushed since it's right next door to Clean, but at the same time very dangerous, because you know what I'm going to say, J-How.
It's next to Clean?
Yeah,
it
they're
sure
feeling
is.
that right now. The Arc Stars are spelling their demise, and the zone is pushing them in. Nemesis, they might end up being in a lot more trouble than we gave them credit for, as Clone has to burn the bubble, but still ends up falling, and now it's Clean's kills.
Yeah, they read that kill feed very well, and they come out, they get the reward from that, down to 6 teams. Clean as the kill leaders right now, or at least individually. Teams up on top of the hill will come down, but it is now Odin Gamers, a team in contention to be one of the spots. They'll go out in 5th, and now All Planned will come in and take over this truck, the most dominant position to come out of. As Clean, they're not done yet.
Oh my lord, then they keep finding kills, this time on Top Dogs, who again has made it into the top couple squads, but might go out a little bit early as All Planned continue to rain down shots onto them. It seems, oh lord, like they were going to get out to safety, but instead it's Shadow that ends up falling, and All Planned are pushing in to try and get the Thirst right here. Not over. Oh my god, it's a headshot! Are you serious? This guy is insane. He's been playing out of his mind on this Kraber, but has finally moved down to one more bullet. Clean, they're the ones benefiting off of the Kraber for right now, but the lobby is shrinking very quickly, as it's just down to these guys, Clean and All Planned, and one bullet in the Kraber.
Clean has cleaned up all of the shots that have gone around them. At the end of this, their KP, they're basically getting assists from the other teams. Now with the Kraber on the other side, just like last game, one Kraber shot sent one down, but Clean was able to recover in that situation. Now they're facing a similar situation. You can see fighting uphill is Clean on the left of your screen, all planned. And now will all plan to be able to close it out. Zone creeping up, forcing them forward. Clean, though, with the more dominant position. See if they can get it done to make it back-to-back.
And they've got that Caustic down again. Right now, we've got a Loba, Valkyrie, and Gibraltar on the other side. Dome is going to be the most important tool in this end game for the side of all planned. Just laying down the harassment back and forth, but this is going to break out very soon as that zone pushes them away from the fences.
The fence is the only thing that's going to stop them. A couple of scout shots will land here for Dolphin. And now we are moments away. The zone creeping up at their backs. They will have to come out.
They gotta go.
And here they go. They're going to bubble forward. Now that's going to be the fight to take. Huge Arc Star. Dolphin's going to get a knock there. That's going to kick things off. They're going to bubble forward. Unlucky goes in, says, don't worry, guys. I did the damage. Come in and finish the business as Clean goes back-to-back for games 2 and 3.
Another really nice arenas win for Clean as they once again get it against just the one other squad, but it was again academically executed from them, and we're seeing the Caustic really pay off. We talked about how not a lot of teams are running it, but very clearly in these end game scenarios, their zone control, the fact that nobody can just run up to them and hide behind a fence because they're likely going to get barreled, really does spell the end for all planned, who, let's not take it away from them, also played miraculously.
They are making pro plays is Clean that I think a lot of teams don't even understand what they're doing. I see, with all due respect to all of our pro teams, they all play differently. They all have different strategies. But what Clean is doing in the instant rotation that they saw, they knew where the zone was going. They played the hill. They played control. The very second, there was zero hesitation. They were able to scout the landscape, get an understanding of where all the teams were fighting, which they knew that means there were going to be spots open by Big Mont. The area that they were in, 2 teams could hold that position. 1 team could potentially hold the fence line and 1 team hold the truck. So there's at least 4 to 5 spots there. They said, let's fly up and over. They went there. They played the position. They got it. What they're doing right now is top tier. Like, they are showing that they are the alpha in this lobby, and everybody's playing for second. That's how well they're reading these zones and playing. I am so impressed so far. And we still have 3 games to go. But what they've done so far has been nothing short of phenomenal. They are schooling people right now.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Jay Howe, but you did mention, of course, that we've got other teams that we got to look out for, and those are the teams that I'm excited to see show up as well. Well, Clean are definitely in that top spot. There are a lot of guys that, especially coming out of the halfway point here, as we just finished game 3 and we only got 3 more to go, do need to be starting to get into the positions that they want to have at the end of the day, getting into the top 10, top 5, maybe even top 3 for 3 jabronis. So we're going to check in with them after we do some quick math and after we get back to show you game number 4. All right, folks, we're about to get into Game 4, but before we do, Jay, how you and I talked about how we all know who's in the top spot, but there's a lot to be determined right below that, so let's take a look at the points before we get into any more gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, all of these games are mattering for the teams that are on the bottom end of things, trying to find their way in. You mentioned some of the conditions for these teams to get here. A lot of that hasn't come together, but I tell you what, Clean, despite that win, All Planned was second. They had 3 more kills, so they came out tied here. A very top-heavy with 2 teams here in game number 3 at 22 points apiece.
Yeah, All Planned did really clean up a lot on the way in and had several really nice knocks. I mean, I gotta give credit where it is due. Sirius was popping off with that Kraber. I am scared. I dare say, terrified if he gets that again. And I think even Clean were sweating a little bit, not having the data on whether he had more shots, whether he had more Kraber in him, but they did end up clinching the top spot, unfortunately for them too, as they ended up tying. Now, of course, the overall standings are the things that have me curious, as we know Clean is there, but All Planned crucially in second right now, as they need that position in order to qualify for the Pro League. And Rats, they're moving their way up here as well. I'm taking a look at across and just seeing who else sort of needs positioning at the moment.
I mean, it has been dominant by the top part of this lobby, to the point where this has been some of the greatest parity that we've had. Normally there's 4 to 5 teams that are all within 10 or so points, but Clean has done so well for themselves. I told you, this is not a team to let their foot off the gas. They are practicing and preparing, and this is like scrims for them to a certain extent. So for them, they're getting prepared and ramped up and ready to go. And what a way to go out and say, hey, we didn't just get there on points, but we did it by not getting second in one of these lobbies and actually coming out and winning. I think that'd be a good testament to them, but that kind of also opens up another position points-wise, kind of a weird paradox, if you will, with how that would work. But for All Planned, they're the one team that are in serious consideration for coming out with the top spot.
They really are. And remember, of course, that sort of the way that the points work is that, of course, if Clean end up making it to the Pro League off of a win, they also free up a slot that may end up favoring some teams that are placed a little bit lower. I think right now the team that's standing out to me is Dungeon Masters, that are very, very close in points and would technically want to make top 5 today. But the fact that they're accumulating points right now, and that Clean is also very close to potentially clinching the top spot and taking themselves out of contention for qualification by points, it's a very sort of mathematical thing that we got to keep our eyes on. We will have updates for you as the day goes on, of course, but just to keep on the radar for right now, All Planned definitely meeting their win condition. Dungeon Masters needing a few more points.
It's crazy how that works, right? Like, there's going to be some teams going into game number 6 are like, man, I really hope Clean wins. There's going to be some other teams that are like, boy, I really hope I win. And that's been the joy of it, is that every game has mattered so far throughout our first 3 weeks. Now we're here in week number 4, seeing where every game still has some implication. And I tell you what, whoever was sitting back at the drawing board as they're preparing, which I'm sure they did months ahead of time, they're like, this is going to be our format. This is it. Somebody's like, dang, man, that guy needs a raise.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful format to get into Pro League, man. I love it.
It's been really cool so far. I'm just like thinking about the potential frustration of Clean as well. Like, imagine if All Planned actually clinched the top spot, qualified to Pro League, and Clean after playing miraculously as well. But oh my lord, that would just be so ridiculously tilting. But of course, being able to qualify is the ultimate goal, and we've got the next game ready for you. So let's see who can put up that performance. Can All Planned usurp the top spot from Clean, or will they continue their dominance and perhaps win themselves a 3rd game?
Man, I wouldn't put it past them. I would say game number 1 was a flute of epic proportions for that team. But you know, there's been a lot to adapt to in this meta. We have more cryptos, the amount of Lobas that have come out. We've talked about that already, but I think it's the cryptos that have certainly kind of thrown a wrench more than any. I mean, Loba's there. I don't know if Loba does near as much, but when it comes to frustration factors, the crypto is at an all-time high. Anytime there's a crypto in your lobby, that's bad. When there's more than one crypto, you're like, oh man, just leave me alone with that EMP, please.
Yeah, everybody's just playing with no body shields because they don't want to deal with it at all. I remember seeing just last game, you know, some folks dropping their body shields on the ground, trying to dodge, desperately not being able to, and it hurts, man. It hurts. Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of that. You can also deactivate some of the scarier ultimates that come through, or rather the tactical abilities, but even things like Seer's ultimate that specifically Nemesis are running, they got to be worried about the instant information denial that crypto can enforce on them should those plays get a little bit too aggressive, get a little bit too involved. You know the cryptos across the lobby are going to be looking at you. Dropping in for our fourth game, though, it is all about, to me, and I presume to these teams, about where this next zone is pulling, because zones are everything, as we've seen time and time again.
Well, hello there. Would you like an early fight? Because I'll give you an early fight.
That looked unfortunate for right now. Lars actually might end up losing this. You see somebody coming around the corner with a shotgun, and Exons is not happy about being chased down. Does end up getting the thirst. Now Game of Drones, they find themselves at a deficit. See how this one ends up playing out, as they actually might just go down right here, right now. Rondon's already gone, and Jules is heading for the hills.
Yeah, as a Jibby, I mean, I don't really know how you get away from this one, and if you do, I mean, at what cost? Now, it's hold it down. Oh.
Just silence. You can't heal.
You wrap around and make them think you kept running. As a rat guide, I've done this. Uh-oh. Dungeon Master's still on the wrap around and make them think you kept running. As a rat guide, I've done this. Uh-oh. Dungeon Master's still on the roof. I mean, they'll have to loot here, so I mean, I don't think you really hide from this.
They've got no scans though.
3, 2,
entering the building. 1. Oh Lord. Oh man, it hurts. Game of Drones, 20th place, and it's their first appearance in the finals, man. This is hard stuff.
It's heartbreaking for a team that I think people had higher expectations for, that for them to go out this early now at a time where they are facing a mountain to climb to win out here in the finals. And with every passing game, it gets harder and harder. And now in game 4, being the first team out, man, that's backbreaking.
Yeah, no kills, no nothing. Exons, of course, very proud of himself for being able to win that one. It looked really dodgy, and I gotta be honest with you, J-Hal, I lose most of those. If I'm the one getting shot first, this is not going down well at the 1 minute mark. But the Eva really turns things around, and well, Game of Drones is going to be happy with their, Game of Drones is going to be very upset. Dungeon Master is going to be very happy with their 3KP. Eternal, however, hoping that they can get themselves a little bit better of a spot, as they have been doing pretty well in terms of their 3v3s, but as we've seen, haven't quite been ready when it comes to later circles.
Man, you mentioned Dungeon Masters needing a good performance. I think that going back on that, that's good for them. Meanwhile, Clean, seen them read the zones incredibly well. Looks like we're pulling pretty heavily towards Survey, and we know that these early Survey zone reads could pull all the way north, could pull directly in Survey, or could even pull further down towards the train area, the little depot area. But when it comes to Clean, if Clean says it's in Survey, I'm gonna put my money on it. It's probably pulling Survey.
Yeah, this is one of those things where just with experience, we can say most people are heading there, and hey, it's true. Most people have decided that actually this is going to be a survey zone. So we do have a lot of sort of zones that end up there, maybe a little bit off to the south, but the other one would be around the train tracks that you and I have both seen before. Get very, very chaotic. We'll look forward to seeing these next couple, but for right now, with every building inside a survey locked down, we're just waiting for a few teams to file into the trucks, and we'll be full up, no vacancies. And that's where things can start to get risky, because a lot of teams are still waiting and honestly have been wanting to play more for zone than anything else. Not a whole lot of edge teams have found success in these lobbies.
I will say this, at the top of the screen, that crane thing, there's a zone that ends just east of that. So the team, whoever holds the top building up on top of the hill, I think might actually be, I think, more the late game team. So whoever occupies that spot, I think, is a team that we'll need to look for later in the game. Because if it does pull over there, I think it's the best spot by far. And it's a low risk spot, even if it does end in survey, because you can still find your way in from the outside with not much threat from your northeast side. Meanwhile, though, Morning Stars, they were actively engaged earlier, just moments ago before we took a look at survey. So team playing here on the far eastern side, still looking to make their way in.
An update, No Fear are out, falling at the hands of T-Rex in the meantime. In a completely different section of the map, nowhere to be seen, but something that we do have to recognize. T-Rex, another team that I feel like has had middling performances today, but I will say that they're looking quite good in their 3v3s. See if that can sort of hang on as Valk takes to the sky to get a little bit more data, and dang well ends up working out. Mox is able to find a nice couple beams, and now the push is on. There's really no saving you from this. Morning Stars, they are on you like a ton of bricks.
You might get the res there. Hold on a second. Mass taking a lot of damage, but you still come out of here still very hurt. There's another crack onto the Wraith. More shots are going to go down. Mox. And man, I tell you what, Morning Stars pumping the brakes a little bit. They're still, I think, the team in advantage here, but man, There we go. Got a little dicey there for a moment.
Yeah, that was a nice play to try and hang on, as Illuminari are the team that ends up going out. I know that they're the ones that like to end at big mods, so maybe some nice guns come in the way of Morning Stars, but nicely done to hold out for that. Morning Stars having a little bit too quick of a turn, quick of a read, and first crack there end up being the ones that come out on top. And yet another gold shield, things that have been swapping around games for teams. As Morning Stars turn to their next engagement, we talked about our teams weren't playing edge. They definitely are.
Interesting rotation, I imagine, coming in from Geyser. Not normally the spots I think we look for more than one fight, Dia. I think this is normally like a one-time deal, turning into a two-time right now.
Nice Lobe ult will be able to pick up loot off those bodies without putting themselves at risk as well. That's Nemesis. It can be nobody else, as they're the only team that runs Seer in the entire lobby. Done quite well to get those micro drones out. Valkyrie ultimate still available though behind this Dorito building. Looks like it might end up being used to try and get Morning Stars to safety. Nemesis are going to be controlling this, gatekeeping it, I dare say. Morning Stars are going to tank a little bit of zone 1 to try and find just the straight up 3v3 for right now, but it doesn't look like it's going their way. Heading back to loot. I guess they've got a little bit more time than we would otherwise expect because of the gold shield, but I don't know if I feel comfortable.
I don't think that was intentional, but needless to say, Nemesis on the retreat. Maybe it was. It looks like they're maybe playing line of sight or maybe looking to wrap back around. I will update you, by the way. Rats got a team wipe. One of our teams seemingly still within contention. And one of our surprise teams today did get some early KP. Meanwhile, we'll turn our attention here. Top Dogs fighting a team that's looking to make a long rotation by heading the opposite way towards staging.
Top Dogs still running Landslide for now, are also going to be put in a position where they've kind of got to play edge at the moment, as next ring pull is going to draw them very, very far up towards Survey. Instead, looking for some of those squads that lag behind, maybe Rats who were involved in some of the kills, as even more kills go down to the kill feed. It's kind of weird how the pace of the game has ever increased.
Man, Rats, one more time. I think they're getting involved.
They're kind of nuts.
Yeah, they are really being aggressive on these third parties. And boy, now that we've got a read on that zone, those survey teams still could pull within survey, but trending more towards that depot area. And when you look at that, there's nobody in the truck there in the middle. There's only one team, and the team in the tunnel that's moving in there now, that's normally one of the other teams. So very curious positioning by the majority of our lobby.
And for the first time here, Clean not only don't have the best spot, but don't have an easy rotation out either. They're sitting right in the middle of everybody, so even Valkyrie ultimates at this point are really risky if you want to instantly reposition. You talk about risk, you got to think about Nemesis right here, who had dropped to that low ground earlier and were definitely punished for it, losing row. And now, trying to hold on to this bridge that we all know, Jayhow, you and I have seen this time and time again. The bridge is a deadly place.
The Bridge of Doom. I mean, there's no benefits of coming out this direction towards the west. I mean, you don't have much cover. Even if the zone is in this area, you just kind of get targeted. So I think they're making the right call, maybe going down towards epicenter, at least playing low and around. There's too many sight lines coming off that bridge. The only time it's beneficial is when the zone's on the right, and they might be getting sent on right now. I don't think they want to poke their head out and risk being shot, but they're keeping in mind Arc Stars in hand.
Ready to turn the tide of battle if they can with a little bit of a knock. But you talked about the sort of risk that they're running across the bridge. Anybody else who tries to commit onto this would also be drawing a lot of unnecessary attention. And so Nemesis are going to be safe for now, albeit down one member. So they give up the singular KP. We're clean. They're still looking for their own way out. We do know that at least for this next zone, they'll be safe. But following that, they've got a lot more pressure on them. Inside of Survey for right now, relatively happy and maybe looking for a little bit more KP as they've got some idea that there's another team in the area. Nice dome, actually, for scouting, of all things.
Ooh, they are willing to get aggressive. It looks like they did get some damage, knowing what to play. That's going to be Flesh. That's going to be a knock, and down and out is Morningstar. Yeah, I think somebody else got involved in that fight. It was Odin.
Mm-hmm. Even T-Rex.
Yeah, I'm like, what? There's 3 different teams that everybody got killed by one different team.
It's the danger of pushing in all this open ground, right? Is being the ones that end up getting hurt by multiple teams focusing out a survey, because there are a lot of teams sitting in these buildings with really nothing to do, and being able to find some kills, the best part of that. Clean, though, now having some death boxes to farm up, or waiting for that bubble to come right back. They ended up using the Gibraltar ultimate maybe to try and just keep other people off of this loot in the meantime, but for right now, even they are being shot at from the team across the way.
That's a good nade.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the bubble from the outside trickling into the inside. Well, they needed somebody to shoot for him so they could loot long enough, even if the bubble wore off. I think that was a really good call. Very good awareness here by Clean. Now they have the bad news, and Rat's taking care of what's left over there. Clone now down, but they get the bad news now, and I think that they're making a ping to say, hey, look, we got to take something of an isolated fight. We need to fight this team potentially in the other building, maybe get them out. That way they can move towards the north and then rotate either around or Valkyl. There's a lot of plays that can be made from that. It's not just a Valk fly and pray for them. They know how to manufacture positioning as well as KP, but also knowing the least risk involved. I think right now Clean has a pretty good idea on that. Meanwhile, Dungeon Masters, the team that we saw rotating into tunnel earlier, now they're the ones benefiting almost from that.
Yeah, no, they're gonna be able to find these kills easy peasy. It's a lot of free damage and not a whole lot that you can do to fight back. T-Rex, who were up in the north earlier, now they are the ones that end up going out very, very quickly, as Dungeon Masters played that immaculately. I think T-Rex still have a few members floating around, though. Perhaps one of them back here, trying to get perhaps the banner, but Dungeon Masters not gonna let that one happen. Instead, actually, looks like finding themselves another knock as YY inside of Survey ended up finding the kill onto Zerifer over here. And Dungeon Master's still going to run this choke right now as they're being bubbled up on him. That would be very strange. That would be a very odd push. There's the finish.
I tell you, whoever comes out of Survey, there's not more than a couple of teams that can come out. Man, Dungeon Master just kind of casually getting KP, but casually shooting. They're not being overly aggressive, and I don't blame them when they hold the position in the tunnel, as they'll likely be the only team that can come out of that. But Odin, now we see they're in trouble, but it's Rats one more time in the kill feed that says, hello, Odin.
There we go. Rats still doing quite well. We mentioned actually Clone falling earlier, and I wanted to point out that Nemesis, our other ratting team, is going to be out for right now, as both Clone and Z ended up falling. Speaking of falling, Not's actually going to go down right now and put Clean in a very difficult position, as they've been trying to rotate out, and they're going to buy some time with the ordinances. I think you end up sticking the res right here, but it's determined on whether Dungeon Masters are pushing them.
Yeah, remember, Dolphin is up on the tower, so that is their Jibby bubble and safety, so I think they will have to let this go, and it's Dungeon Masters that will come through, get some KP and the knock there and the thirst. So now leaving clean down to 2 members, maybe a little bit of a wrong read there. They tried to sneak up on Dungeon Masters, got a couple of angles, but Dungeon Masters turned around, and now they're the ones still with the dominant position coming out of the tunnel, and the zone closing in 2 seconds. Just how far north will this pull in their favor? It's pretty good.
Hey, there we go. The moment of silence as we all hold our breath. And hey, while we were holding our breath, there was plenty of action to keep you guys interested in that kill feed, as Eternal were definitely finding some really nice plays in the meantime. Dungeon Master's not a part of any of them, as they've already claimed their own kingdom up here. Still do have 2 different entrances to watch, and perhaps their backs as well. I'm interested to see whether Clean can get back in the game, as Noblesse, another team that's operating as 2 right now.
I would say, I'm pretty sure I caught this at the last moment. They had to load in with a duo. So the fact that they're still in the top 10 as just a 2-person squad, I think is a good state right now. But normally it's a more of survival than anything. The 3 jabronis hold the truck, normally a good position. But when you move forward, you have to go north. You have to go out. For them, at the northern end of this platform, there are lots of boxes, lots of peaks, a couple of staircases that you can play around. So 3 Jabroni is another team with good positioning, at least for this next zone.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about their positioning for the zone. Their positioning in the lobby, though, is anything but, as I have been very, very scared for 3 Jabronis coming into today. They need to place the highest, if not win, to be able to secure their spot in Pro League, which is, of course, the goal. And as of right now, their performances up until this point have not been the best. Now that they've got the truck, maybe that starts changing, but it is still extremely risky, as searching for a little bit of loot. Tizzle is gonna, I assume, find himself some more ammunition, but realistically, from this point, the most you can look for is to farm up your shields, get a little bit more comfortable that way, because you're gonna be fighting here no matter what.
Yeah, they have an eye on that southwestern side, but I think this is what they're more afraid of, is another team coming up from their side, a little more threatening. So they have eyes on that, not willing to commit to the fight just yet. I mean, I think they need to try and find an isolated or third party. I think they're afraid of giving up position, but Top Dogs making their way across, and they do not know this. They have not kept an eye on that fight on the west side, so Top Dogs being shot, they need to peek up and over. Instead, they're not getting any of this KP, so playing a little bit more defensive. Meanwhile, we do see more of Dungeon Masters still getting more KP.
Oh my god,
Holy
Evoke
cow.
is just decimating teams with that ultimate. Ends up finding 2 whole kills just from that, and plenty of damage as well. Top Dogs, though, not having taken that much damage and having bought themselves some safety with the Gibraltar Dome, now finding themselves losing a member, and 3 Jabronis, the other ones that can come over the top to clean this up, still have an amazing spot inside of this ring, as right now they're getting pushed to try and take it from them. It's a Dolph that shows up in the kill feed as he's pushing onto Top Dogs from the back, and 3 Jabronis manage to hang on to their spot. There's a battle for the high ground right now. It seems like it's slowing down as Top Dogs, they end up saying their goodbyes for this round.
It seems like all planned might be that team that they were shooting at. I think they're just trying to make sure they don't get landed on. They do see one landing over here.
There it is.
It's going to be down and out the rest of Top Dogs. So 3 Jabronis starting to get some KP by way of the defensive bombardment, but now starting to farm up on the outside. They haven't been very aggressive in these 3v3 scenarios. So a team that seems to be favoring more positioning, less aggro. Now they'll have to fight their way in. This zone pulls very far north. One of those tricky zones where there's a couple of, you see directly in front of them, that giant terrain, that whatever we want to call it, rock that comes out.
Yep.
That's the pivot point for a lot of teams that try and go in. You go left, you go right, but you got to use that as your defensive tool to isolate a team one way or another, and that is your way in.
You also mentioned, I believe, much earlier on in the game, the cranes here. Is Valkyrie ult going to bring us in? We'll see where they end up landing. The crane off to the west is another spot that they could try and, albeit, I'll say a little bit greedily, play around. It's out of zone, and so is the high ground that they were going for. They turn right back around, but all planned. They may have just made a deadly mistake.
Well, these are the 2 rocks that they have to play on. There's the third directly in front of them. They kind of line up, going gradually downhill like stair steps, but landing this early does leave you open to a third party. Massive shots, though, will put the brakes real quick on that. All planned now can be the aggressor. Elstar coming out doing some damage, and here we go. All planned to knock
They're trying to clean this up, and they do.
Ooh.
Wonderful defense, but now it's clean coming in with just the duo. They said, well, we'll take the third party. That's what I said. You leave yourself open by getting there too early, and surprise, surprise, it's clean in the top 4 with some more KP.
It is indeed a deadly mistake from All Planned, but Clean, they don't make those. They've already lost the 1 member, but are looking good. Well, Rats, actually, this might be their game inside of yet another dome fight. We'll see if this gets third-partied as well, though, because Mania, is going to end up going down just in the nick of time. Dungeon Masters have got their last member up as well. Lumi, gonna buy them some time with defensive bombardment. I think should be able to get his teammates back up, but has to be careful. The shots connect on him. Seems like we're gonna be okay for now. 1 member gets back up. Gold backpack, no less, providing insane value right now. But Clean in the kill feed are showing themselves as a threat and pushing down over the top right now. Clean are still looking for even more KP, and they're gonna get it, moving themselves to the top 2 with a 2-man squad, J-How.
They might be able to do it. There's only 1 person left on Uprising. Clean somehow, some way has now made it back to back to back as a duo squad, and they ran through every team at the end there. I mean, you want to talk about what term gets thrown around? You want to talk about decimation? Clean just destroyed those teams at the end.
No,
Holy cow.
man. No, man. No. Oh, my Lord. They get the turkey. That's... oh, my God. Imagine how tilted you are as every other squad, as All Planned especially, who we saw start that whole barrage of carnage there that gave Clean their avenue back in to being able to clean up to third party everything. I mean, you've got to be proud of yourself. We've been praising Clean all day. But after this game, I think there's no question they're taking the top spot because they have run lobbies again and again. I want to see how it ended up with the points, but I can't say enough good things, J-Hal. That was incredible.
I mean, I want to see like where they came from, because it was like dun 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 dun, just out of nowhere. You're like, all right.
I thought they were coming from the back. Like,
you know, All Planned went up, they took the Valkyrie, and they came down. And that's why I said, normally you walk your way forward and you choose your path. It's like you can choose door A or door B, 1 or 2. And they chose to go up, hop over the wall, and instead of isolating one side, they now open it up. Normally you have to take 1 step, like you leapfrog those big rocks that come out, and you take your fight. You have the high ground, you have angles. That team normally runs or gets shot in the back, and you move in maybe with the zoner slightly behind you. Instead, they flew up. I would say that Valkyrie play kind of is what was the tumultuous part of that whole thing, where they won the fight behind them. But what if they had won that fight moving forward? Now all of a sudden they don't leave themselves open from the side. Things like that can be the difference between 1st and 5th or 4th, and we saw that. And it also means that Clean 3 wins in a row.
It's absolutely insane stuff. We'll go back to analyzing those plays in just a few minutes, as we're going to take a break, do some math, and then we'll be back with your penultimate game of the day. What's up, guys? Welcome back. We're about to jump into our 5th game of the day. It's my favorite game because I get to say the word penultimate, and we get even more high stakes as we are approaching our 6th and final. But first, we got to go through this one. Of course, last game, these are the scores from that. Clean, no surprise, coming out on top, although it was a surprise in the moment, wasn't it, J-How?
I mean, just coming out of nowhere as a duo squad. I mean, they knew that they had to try and third party somewhere. I don't think that they knew that they could get that much success. I think anytime you finish as a duo, you're like, we'll play for placements, but we'll try and snipe some KP. They didn't snipe some KP, and they didn't play for placements. They ran through, I think, 3 teams there at the end and just said, we'll take this KP, we'll take this KP, and lastly, we'll take this KP, and we'll go back to back to back, man. But what another amazing performance for them.
Yeah, really good stuff. Clean still hanging out of that top spot by a lot here, and all planned. Also coming up very, very close with Rats tailing them by about 12 points. And I gotta give homage to Rats, who I believe were, what is this, 3rd last game. And
we're second in points.
They were 2nd in points. Okay, there we go. That's pretty amazing, again, for a squad that had not been in preseason qualifiers before. These guys are kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, if Clean isn't in this lobby, think about what Rats could be doing for that miracle run to get one of those top spots. I mean, it is crazy that you have a team as dominant as Clean here in week number 4. We got to remember, they've been 2nd 2 weeks in a row prior to this. So a team that's been right on the cusp, qualified by points, but really trying to hit it home. But, you know, to go back to the earlier part that you had brought up, one of these teams now is rooting for Clean, because Clean with the automatic qualifier now comes out of the, hey, we're in by points category, opening the door for one more team to get in on points.
Yeah, Dungeon Masters may very well be that team as well. They've moved themselves up to 6th place, and a 5th place finish today is expected to put them into the Pro League. That's sort of the projected placement that they would need in order to move on. But it would be made a lot easier for them if Clean were to sort of eliminate themselves, as it seems like they're going to be doing. And maybe Dungeon Masters have already gone far enough. They did look really good last game, and they were actually the one team that got a kill onto Clean.
What if Rats comes through? They're like, look, we're just warming up.
Oh,
they come through down 30-something points.
Yeah.
Just dominate the last 2 games, put up a couple of like 25, 30-point games. Boy, what a run that would be, huh?
That would be pretty amazing. I'm very excited seeing Rats' performance today and how competitive they've been in this lobby, because it sort of projects my mind forward to Challenger Circuit. They are unlikely to qualify today outside of that 1st place finish. They should not have the points to move forward, so we're going to be seeing them in Challenger Circuit. And the fact that we know that we're going to be getting this level of play inside of that is really, really amazing, as we've got a lot of teams that still are right on the border of qualifying. We can't quite say one way or another, but the top end is still looking really, really good. As Game of Thrones, they're taking another early fight. It cost them last time, but this time they do have a Havoc.
Well, last time they kind of ran in on an Eva. After that first pump, I thought they would put the brakes on it and kind of overcommitted. I think this time showing a little more patience before they dive right in, but still the aggressor nonetheless.
For right now, they've got shotguns of their own. They get up to a nice little ledge over here. Lars actually making a pivot, going onto that caustic. This is the Valkyrie that we've seen previously, and now Game of Thrones definitely switching up the composition. They've been the ones that have been running Wraith and Gibraltar alongside the Valkyrie, and now we're definitely taking, I think, what is the more meta composition right now in these last couple games.
It's never too late to kind of switch it up. I think he missed the blue energy mag there, but
unlucky.
Either way, the fact that they are willing to switch it up, you mentioned the Challenger Series. Of course, that's starting soon as well. The teams that don't make it in to the Pro League will have another way to get in. So if you haven't heard about the Challenger League, there is plenty of information out there on the EA site. That will be the EMEA broadcast, I believe, will be on this channel. I don't want to announce anything that hasn't happened yet, but there's going to be in a couple of different places nonetheless. So these teams will be able to continue to compete for a chance in a few months to make it into the Pro League.
Yeah, continue honing their skills as well. Might be Game of Thrones competing in there, as they are also not in a place where they've accumulated the correct amount of points to be able to move themselves onto the pro circuit. Dungeon Masters seem to have escaped their early wrath for now, though. Playing inside of these buildings, they've got plenty of shields to work with, and the high ground, unfortunately, they don't have the ring. Is that something we've yet to discuss this time, J-Hal? But it is very much taken us away from Skyhook, and I wonder where it's going, because we haven't really seen that big, wide map shot yet. It's going to determine the success of a lot of these teams, though, is being able to play your zone is something that I think a lot of these teams just pray for the chance to do.
It's seeing these teams, this is hot pursuit of epic proportions, and sometimes you got to be careful playing with fire, because that fire will sometimes hit you right in the face by way of a PK.
Oh,
holy
my God.
cow.
Oh my God, Plusha is just disgusting with this Peacekeeper taking chunk after chunk out of him. A Game of Thrones just got absolutely styled on by Plusha.
I'm like, dang, that's a pretty, I mean, look, the PK is like the wingman of shotguns, where it's like, it's either going to feel real good or it's going to feel real bad. That 83 damage felt pretty scary there, but T-Rex cleaning up No Fear, I believe now is finished that squad, or maybe almost finished, and Clean did get into the snake this time. If you were here for game number 1, they were our first team out trying to make this rotation. Since then, they've done a casual 3 wins in a row. Hello, would you like a headshot? Yeah. May I offer you another?
Is waiting in the corner right now, going to be able to push up off this again. Talked about the wingman and the Peacekeeper. This is definitely one of those feel-good moments. Is actually now pushing up into this bubble. Might be able to get a knock. Taking the Wraith Portal right out, though. Unlucky. Finds out that he's pushed up a little bit too far and needs to retreat back inside of this building. Nice stuff from Knots to get that out of his way as well. That was so clean.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because that, I mean, had the other team shot that thing doesn't go away, but the quick pickup was actually, that's teamwork right there, man. Like, it's small things like that. You're like, that's fine, man. Listen, guys, there's 17 squads left. Come on now. But in reality, that's actually a huge play. That's actually a really big play.
Yeah, it's super good stuff from Clean, and definitely not letting off the gas for right now. Although I will say that the very fact that they are here makes me wonder where Odin is, because we saw No Fear go out, we saw T-Rex pick up a couple of kills, but we didn't see any knock on the squad that was just pushing up towards Clean, and that very well could have been Odin on a little bit later of a rotation than they were last time.
I was secretly hoping that they were able to get redemption on their own Kraber. I don't think there's normally a Kraber this early, but I mean, the amount of times they've been hit by a Kraber, like, come on, man. Like, why is it always a Kraber? I think this is like the time where you're like, redemption, the redemption arc of Kraber.
Yeah. They could have made it. They could have taken all that and pushed that karma back onto the other teams that inflicted it on them. As of right now, they'll have to chill for a little while until they get that Kraber, of course. You talked about how we got to wait till the next couple zones for that one to really come through. 3 Jabronis have another spot in Harvester. This is really nice, but I would say for the most part, Harvester seems relatively quiet for right now. We haven't gotten the early rotations that we did in Game 1 that really, I would say, caught a lot of teams off guard, and basically the game has definitely increased in these last couple. I believe No Fear right now losing another member, but already with 16 squads remaining, we're telling a very, very different story from when we started the day.
I think the earlier Harvester zone, or the Harvester area zone that we saw, was a little bit slower pace other than that first early skirmish. And I think teams are starting to realize positioning is a really good thing, and to just try and get into these tunnels, the western side and the southern side, where we see these two teams. Those are I think the safer ones. The snakes on the northern side, on the west and north, or in the east, those are the scary ones. Like, those are the very scary ones to hold, where when you're on top like Illuminari is, a team can exist below you and there's no real threat. You don't normally fight. When you're in those snakes, one crack on either side can be the trigger that everybody says, let's go. As I would say that ticked a little longer than you would normally see.
That was a pretty sick thermite, I'm not gonna lie. Luminari, this is their time to shine. I can see it right now, as they've been pretty quiet today, but finding a nice thermite, taking out the Loba ult from afar as you got a little bit of extra ammunition on this wingman here. You can see the level 3 mag is sweet, but having that little rampart passive added right on top of it, even better. They got those from Pop It Over to Big Mod. If you want some for yourself, you can go pick them up right there. Top Dogs, though, they're involved in a different fight with a little less ammunition on the wingman. In fact, having to give up a lot of their positioning as well as T-Rex. They're the ones on the low ground. They're the ones that are taking down Top Dogs right now. It is a coordinated effort from multiple squads, it seems, as Top Dogs are in a little bit of a no-win scenario.
Oh, just barely escaped that. Had they gotten that knock, I think they could recover. Oh,
that's bad.
Goodbye, Mimu, by way of longbow. That'll sit you down real quick. So we have another team in the mix.
Yeah, for right now, T-Rex are going to be backing off, I think, recognizing as much as we did that another team has entered the chat. This is not going to be the easy kills that you thought it was, and Big Bam are going to deny them to you. Already having picked up the knock onto Mimu and looking for a little bit more damage to farm themselves up. Unlikely to find these kills, but what we can say is that for at least now, they own this high ground that has already been highly contested. Despite the fact that the zone doesn't tend to pull here, this is still an interesting spot to see teams prioritize. I normally think that this is really nice real estate if we're pulling to thermal, but we're not this time around, J-House. So why the focus here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just as confused as you. I think they're kind of posting up, maybe seeing it's like, well, there were a couple of teams here. Let's get some KP.
Wow.
It's just not a long-term hold. So I agree with you. As we do see Morning Stars with a knock here, we'll push off of that. But I agree with you. It is a curious spot to hold. I think it's just kind of a delayed tactic. But at the same time, that choke that's just to the east of you, you can rotate in off of that and then take the high ground. I think that's kind of the long-term play for that. You just have to hope nobody else kind of comes in and takes that spot before you. We see Morning Stars in pursuit.
Oh!
Flatline destroying. Me. That is some sick shots right there.
First Nisa and then Mox. They are doing disgusting things to Nemesis right now, and that may be the very last serial of the game if they go out right now. Morningstar's just going to take the one kill, not push down into this truck, but actually have put themselves in a dangerous position if they stop and think a little bit more about it. This bridge can get very action heavy very quickly, and we're still quite early on. A lot of teams are still filing in. Morningstars, thankfully, have the Loba ultimate to be able to keep themselves up, because otherwise you got a spot with no loot available to you and not a whole lot of cover.
The amount of longbow shots that we've heard this game are tremendous. A lot of teams, you know, kind of rediscovering the longbow, if you will. It was last season that it got the rebuff, that and the wingman on the headshot damage when the skull piercer went out. Like, I don't think it was too far off, but a lot of teams recently are like, you know what, like, maybe we should be running this a little more, because it kind of disappeared, and it phases in and out despite minor changes. No matter what, the fire rate on that thing will always make it good.
Yeah, it's a thing that really puts it heads and tails, or heads and shoulders above.
I'm fine with heads and tails above.
Heads and tails is fine, yeah. Above the Sentinel in some cases as well. I don't think we've seen as many teams running that this season, especially, as really I would look more often to Renegades to be picking that one up, but instead it's been a lot more quiet of a gun, especially with, I think, the longbow buffs that you talked about. It's risen in priority. We'll take a moment to stop talking about gun meta for right now. At least I will, though, since Dungeon Masters, they've got a little bit of an engagement ahead of them. Not inside of the next ring, but still quite safe for now. Are going to be trying to take this high ground, and pretty comfortably doing so, as we talked about them being in the 6th place spot. I think still looking for a lot of those positioning points to keep their place nice and safe.
You know, farmhouse or grandma's house, however you want to refer to it, the house on the hill here directly in the middle seems to be the rotational point that a lot of teams will be focusing on and converging on here momentarily. And we had mentioned some of the teams that were around the bend. They can now come down through the tunnel, now come down through the choke. And I think a lot of teams now, with this zone revealing itself, will be focusing more towards this. Still a possibility that it does get closer to Harvester, but as more things come to fruition, Dungeon Masters, now they're going to use this as that pivot point to now try and rotate in. So they now control the fates of teams that will come in on their right there. that are to the south or teams that are here on the west. So they'll kind of have an overview. What they do with it, of course, is up to them. They have a couple of KP so far. They do kind of have that easier rotation to get in and kind of pick teams off that are still on the outside.
Wow, this is actually, yeah, this might be one of those hill zones. I'm quite excited for.
It could be north side of Harvester too. Like that's the scary one. North side of Harvester is brutal to fight. It's rare, but it happens. I think this will be maybe further southwest.
Seems like it.
This is. There's certain, like East Harvester that happened earlier, you can read that one pretty early. This one is very much up in the air. Heads and tails, if you will.
That was a much better use of that metaphor, I gotta say. That one actually really clutched it out. Actually, as we take a look at Morning Stars, I think we've seen some zones end around here as well. So yeah, definitely a little bit of a coin flip this one, as Morning Stars actually have a pretty nice position to hold, as their backs won't be open for too much longer, especially on the next ring close, and already you can assume have cleared them out, since they were the team occupying the bridge before and have a pretty good idea of who else might be getting up there. There still are some teams that should be coming up behind them though. The remnants of Nemesis, operating as a two-man for right now, may try and make their way back in, but it's interesting they've identified their biggest threat as being off to the east.
Well, T-Rex, though, they've been very aggressive playing around the edge of zone. They have to fight forward. They can play on the fence if they want to fight into that. I think they just have to be careful of the teams that are still rotating in as well. You can't do it too early. If you do it too early, you open the door for a third party. But if you just move in, I think we just saw somebody there on the left. Yeah, there they are.
Nice.
And so they do have to either fight or play Ravine. And we don't know yet if Ravine is taken. They can make that play to go down there and see if they commit to the fight. It looks like they're at least willing to explore the idea of fighting, as the Jibby ult goes out, met with a frag in return. That's going to hit, cause some damage.
Yeah, you fish for a little bit, not finding the knock, actually forcing the dome right here, but T-Rex still relatively comfortable as it's dead inside, holding up top right now. A team that I am happy to see showing up, as they have had some really nice performances in times gone past, but will they be cut short by a T-Rex that is playing extremely aggressive? I mean, this was the Apex Predator
they got hit.
Gone by, but oh, lordy, getting screen shook up the wazoo. Kearney is going to fall, and T-Rex, they may just go down now, as dead inside makes short work of them.
Well, this is the scary part, is the third party could come in that southern point of Harvester. If a team is willing to commit, they could come through. It looks like they should get the retreat, but man, unfortunate timing. We saw the Valk go forward, and there was an arc star just off the screen, but when they flew forward, flew directly into that. That was all go from dead inside. And you want to talk about hiding in the ravine? That's one way to one place to hide.
What's going on here? That's what I want to know. I want to see what team this is. It's just the singular rat right now, as Harvester behind them is devolving into fights. Still everybody holding on to their spots, though, as nobody's actually been forced out just yet. Rats, interestingly enough, not the team ratting. Instead, the ones that are trying to hold this hill, I think predicting that's going to pull a little bit more this way, are now going to be sorely disappointed by the fact that we are going straight on top of Harvester and nothing less will do.
And had they got the knock off that, they got the headshot, but weren't able to follow up. Now they've got a team behind them.
Got caught off guard a little bit. There we go.
Yeah, they have to still regroup here, and they might just try and ult this out. I don't know if this bubble is going to last. Yeah, the bubble didn't last the full duration. So instead of putting the ult down, they've now taken the shots, and this is going to be rats. No way they survive this. Mania with about 10 health left. They will be done for. Bubble will keep them alive. Clean. Our team, they said, hey, look, if the zone doesn't go, we do not hesitate. We find our way in. Let's see where they end up landing. They have something in mind. You know that they do, and it looks like they might be trying to play for high ground. Nobody's scanned yet. Instead,
okay,
they're committed.
I like this
there
spot.
they go.
Yeah, this was really good. You saw the debate there between the high ground up on the hill and on top of Harvester, and it seems like they've chosen or opted into that. Oh lord, though, dead inside. They find themselves a nice kill with the scan there and end up taking out the remainder of top dogs. Well, it seems like in the kill feed, it doesn't seem like Clean are too much luckier. They actually end up falling quite early for the decision that gets punished quite quickly from Odin.
Well, the team on the hill. I mean, you have a perfect sight line to shoot on there. There's no cover for you unless you hug that northern wall. And if you don't hug that northern wall, you will be shot. And even then, you probably get naded out. So they are out still, will be our first place team. Remember, Rats within striking distance, albeit very distant, they are already out as well. So their biggest competitor out. There's still one more team. And it still is a giant gap between these teams.
All planned. One of the squads that we need to be looking out for is Dungeon Masters have been showing up in the kill feed as well, and that's really, really good stuff for them. They should be able to move themselves into a 5th place spot after this game, but it's going to be determined on everything else is uprising. Unfortunately, not having the best game right now, not even feeling safe enough to pop the shield. Bats are going to lose one more of their members. Krezen not going to be playing this game anymore, and Morning Stars, having found their kill on Top Dogs to finish them off, are now pretty safe on the low ground.
Well, they can pop up and over. I think that's their best bet. The zone does tend to end near that door that's on the western part of Harvester, so the team that's in there in that strand will be able to just kind of poke out. They will it's kind of on that corner, so a lot of teams will know that that's going to be their main priority. So for Morning Stars to move forward, they might want to move down the ravine. They just have to do it later because the teams on top of Harvester might be looking to play. And you can see they're already pinging. There's already a team on the low ground, but there is still room if they want to move up. But I think they have to do so very patiently and not get too aggressive too early.
You and I were talking about this, actually, how Morning Stars play a really, really good game when it's up close battle, but the rotations have been a little bit odd recently, and right now might still be punished for them as double domes
he can't
have gone
climb
down inside here, and Nisa struggles to get out for right now, does end up getting knocked off of that delay, and now Morning Stars, again, seem to be in trouble right now, but they've baited this other team down into the low ground and have plenty of ordinances to deal with that. Up in the high ground, Free Jabronis are finding some real nice value with that thermite, and as the ring closes in around them to help, they're going to turn their attention to the low ground, find some more knocks, some more damage, and we are really getting chaotic around here.
Oh my goodness. The amount of teams in the kill feed, astronomically high, but 3 Jabronis holds the high ground. They'll shoot down, try and get some KP of their own. Morning Stars got blessed by a third party to get their self some space and time to regroup. They now hold behind this. They are open to grenades, and if they don't get hit by grenades, they can go. They also got an armor swap off of that Loba ult. That could be crucial to their survival to eat those nades, to be able to hop back down and get that. 7 teams left, only 18 players though in the lobby, and now that's the team that people will be looking for there on that western strand. Actually, looks like it might be more towards on top. My goodness, what an end zone.
And in a way, Clean did read the zone correctly, but it was just a little bit too excited. Now, lobby going to be run by another team entirely as they get scouted out by a Crypto, just about making sure that all of your bases are covered. Odin right below here also have a really nice spot as they can control right outside of the zone. Odin actually go for the kidnap, don't quite find it, but I got to appreciate how gutsy that was.
You can see as they approach, they're like, uh-oh, this might be a little bit risky. And we're afraid to go in, so they got the jump, not able to get it. But the fact that this zone is ending on top, or out there, I mean, the team above you and Odin Gamers, those are the teams that will inevitably have to decide who comes down first and who wins that crazy fight. We're about to find out.
Morning Stars are out right now. They will not have the opportunity to get any further inside of here. Dungeon Masters, though, have been running this lobby, and they're coming up against Dead inside on this, I'll call it high ground for now, but it's a little bit generous. Seeing if they can find some ordinances inside of this bubble to scare them off.
Oh, that's
instead,
a nade.
Oh, Lord, that was a very risky position there. Dead inside definitely get the better end of that trade, but nobody's going to commit just yet, as commitment can, quite honestly, mean your death. Jumping down, oh, they are going to manage to take out the kills, though. It seems like Tizzle from the high ground is going to be the one to do that. Very nice cleanup there, and well orchestrated. See if that ends up netting them the win. Odin Gamers, though, still waiting on this low ground, have a great spot to play with and are really making it work for them with this caustic as well. They control the low ground, and dropping here, you'd be a fool.
Well, Odin Gamers, they don't have the bubble on a caustic to deal with any other caustic gas. Instead, they aren't targeted by anything, so they're looking up. They know that's their big threat. They're playing with the zone at their back, moving forward, playing with their own caustic, getting some damage in. Down goes one, down goes another. They're peeping across. Odin trying to come forward, but down comes their nemesis, dead inside. Get some extra kills there, Odin Gamers. Vic, can you do it? Odin Gamers does do it. Vic comes through in the clutch with that caustic gas to be your game 5 winners.
That was such a chaotic end game with 3 different squads. Just they didn't want to fight each other at all. They were like, absolutely not. I am not fully engaging onto one team. I'm not full sending. We are playing this slow, and in the slow game, you called it, caustic is gonna win at the end of the day. It wasn't the Eva shot, it wasn't the play, it was the sustained damage that ended up doing it. And well played to Odin to, after wiping clean in game 1, find themselves to a game 5 victory at long last. Amazing stuff from them.
You know, the cool part about that zone, and I was referencing the old caustic meta versus the new caustic meta, and when caustic was super meta, when his gas was really buffed. But before that time, I believe it was Alliance. I remember one of their games, it might have been a year and a half ago. They were a caustic team before caustic was really meta, and they used it for those situations. I saw them in an identical situation a long time ago in that exact same spot. Whoever comes down from that high ground, there weren't that many caustics at the time, and that's where the problems come in. When you move in and you let that zone compress, the caustic will win out. And I think it was the gas that ended up going there. There were so many bodies there at the bottom. I didn't know if Vic would pull that out, but my goodness, the caustic reigns supreme, and there's a good reason why he's a very good late game character.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the fact that there were 3 teams there, like, we couldn't have just a big chunk come through and have everybody commit. It had to be played so slow, and it fed into exactly what Odin were setting up for from minute 1. Now the fact that they've managed to win another Harvester zone, or at least win themselves a zone that they did place well in last time, I think puts them in a great spot. But I will say, J-How, we haven't had a team that isn't already qualified win a game yet, and game 6 is going to be the last opportunity for that. We're going to do some math, we're going to take a look at the points, and then we'll hop into game 6 in just a few minutes. Hello, ladies and gents. It's about to be our 6th game of the day, and Jayho, it's going to be our final game of the preseason qualifiers in EMEA. With this game, at the end of what I'm going to say is the next 25 minutes, we will know who we're sending off to the Pro League as well. At the very least, we've got some really nice scores to cover. We've got some teams that have been putting up some big games that I think, curiously enough, Odin did not put up the biggest one despite having one last game.
Yeah, Dungeon Masters, that's remarkable right there. 14 kills, and you mentioned the math for them at the beginning, and there's so many different variables to cover, but they needed a big day, and they might be having it. I mean, that is 23 points that they desperately needed. I don't even care about the rest of the points. I want to see the next one.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the overall standings here. As Dungeon Masters, off of that game, have moved themselves to the 3rd place spot. They needed to get top 5. Now they're in top 3. This should be enough to clinch it. I cannot confirm that on broadcast. Nobody quote me on it, but I am saying with 98% certainty that if Dungeon Masters do not fall out of the top 5 here, that they should make it into the Pro League. Above them, All Planned are also still in a great spot to be able to make it. These two teams needed to get the points today, and they can thank their lucky stars that they have managed to find them. Clean with that top spot, though, looks pretty darn unchallenged.
Yeah, look, the fact that these teams are performing when they need to the most, I think is a great testament, a great look for them going into the Pro League if and when they make it. There's still so many spots that are out for the taking, and because of the turmoil that we've seen week in and week out, not every team has made it every week. Some teams have only been here once, some twice, and Clean have been here every single week, and now they might just take the top spot. So seeing the different teams that are here, I bless the people that are putting together who's going to qualify and who's not, but you know that the pressure is on because every position matters for these teams in the last game.
Yeah, this is really, really important for these guys, and Clean want to go out on a win. They don't want to get that 2nd place once more, and they should have it by all of the math that we know, but there's always that outside on a win. They don't want to get that 2nd place once more, and they should have it by all of the math that we know, but there's always that outside chance, and we gotta respect it. So keep your eyes in that kill feed, because if Clean go out early to a team like Odin, to really a team like anyone, it could be sincerely problematic. I think the other place that my attention is going to be drawn is Skyhook, because it is our last game of the day, and granted, Game of Drones is unlikely to qualify given what we've already seen, the fact they have gone out in 2 games in a row with no points, but are they really going to contest again, or do they have to start thinking about somewhere else?
Well, keep in mind the team that's out there that they're contesting is Dungeon Masters. So Dungeon Masters have benefited from that matchup because they've been winning it. So they are getting some early KP off of them, and it does look like they will be joined in Skyhook one more time. So for Dungeon Masters, you mentioned it, if Clean goes out, you know, All Planned, Dungeon Masters, one of these teams, it would take a Herculean effort, if you will, to make up that gap, but it's not inconceivable. We've seen stranger things happen. I mean, think back a few weeks ago when Clean needed to run the gambit and came up just short in the last fight and came up 2 points short. It's very much a thing that could happen.
Yeah, the math in Apex is definitely my weakest point, but it's the one that consistently also gets me the most excited. So we'll see how things play out in this next game, as it seems like we've got an interesting zone pull that's, again, going central and giving some generous looks over to Harvester.
A lot of central zones today. We haven't seen the extreme southern zones like Thermal or Tree, or even all the way down towards Lava City and north. I don't remember the last time we had a Skyhook ending at this point. I kind of missed those.
We're cursed.
We are cursed. Maybe we'll get those later, but definitely I think teams are feeling pretty familiar with these zones today.
And these plays are going to sort of be run again and again for these squads. I think it's interesting when you end up picking up things like snipers around these zones. I know that we talked about the longbow being really well utilized just last game. But, of course, you know, when you're moving into Harvester, I'm not really thinking about sniper rifles. It's not really a big point for me of thinking about the long range there. So much happens in close quarters, but a lot of these teams nonetheless have really opted into wanting to be the team that can take you down from afar, even if it comes to the risk of using one of your weapon slots to not be able to really fight super close up. And oh my lord, this is actually almost a repeat of game 1.
Yeah, most notably on the upper right portion is a decision that could impact the game tremendously. Is Clean. Do they hold that choke, which is very common for teams, or do they come down and look for real estate? It looks like they're coming down for real estate. I don't blame them. With Lava Siphon and the different buildings here, 3 Jabronis already down 2 members. A lot of teams have valued going in here. 3 Jabroni is going to try and drop down, might even into the welcoming arms of Clean if they saw that.
Oh, yeah, I think they did. I think they just may have. And drop not going to come through just now. Is Tizzle going to be able to survive and heal up for right now? But it opens up a spot for Clean as they move in. Illuminari also making their own aggressive push inside, using all of the ordinances that they have available to clear out this zone and make sure that they're the ones that get dominance over this building. For right now, going to wait on the outside. It's Flatline extra juiced up off a rampart. Going to be held for now. Nice knocks come in, and Fizu going to end up falling there. It is a trade, and you got to be careful pushing onto a Eternal. These guys are not inexperienced by any means.
The hardest part about pushing those buildings is everybody else, except for the team in front of you. Meanwhile, Mozam dead right now. And we did see Clean kind of take the central point here of what they could see as being the zone. The best part about the spot they control, Dia, is that even if it does pull further towards Lava Siphon, kind of isolate themselves from everybody else around them, and they can make that rotation over in a number of different ways, whether it's low ground, whether just getting to that other side of the fence. So for teams that are there, but yeah, this is the problem with contesting early. When everybody sees you're fighting, they're like, all right, well, I guess we'll come in too. I mean, this has just been one wave after, and it's like a tower defense game right now.
That was rough to go out like that. Jellycorn, though, gonna be real happy picking that one up. Eternal grab another kill, and Clean are staying out of it, just hanging out in the house over here. I mean, you mentioned the flexibility of the spot. Their previous one is taken all the way up by Grandma's house, but I kind of like this one more because you can also have this pressure on the choke. You can still look for picks, and definitely a lot of flexibility inherent for right now. Clean, though, don't have their shields where they want them, and for right now, at least in the poke wars, that is costing them because of the aforementioned longbows.
Yeah, they were trying to focus the team up on top of the hill, but you got the team in the house just to the east of them, and so they'll try and peek out behind this door. That's a great way of doing it. So getting those shields up will be paramount to their success later. Meanwhile, they'll probably be more than comfortable there for quite some time. Odin, our team, our winners from last game, looking on the edge of the zone for themselves and kind of get an idea on who's kind of controlling the perimeter right now.
Nemesis getting chunked out right now. Are going to have to keep their perimeter inside of their own house while way off in the distance. Dungeon Masters are playing a totally different game. I suppose this is one of those strats where they're in second place and don't want to lose it. Believe they can outplay an end game, and honestly, I can't blame them.
Yeah, man, you are so close to clinching, and just getting near the top should be enough for you to get into the Pro League. No risks needed. Don't blame them one bit. Meanwhile, T-Rex team fighting here at Landslide. Man, T-Rex is murking people right here.
Woo! May Game of Drones rest in peace as well. It feels so bad to have finally survived their 3v3 over at Skyhook, push right back in, and before they even hit the zone, get taken down by a T-Rex that is hungry for kills. But are they actually going to get landed on right now? That is so risky, but T-Rex are down a member.
Oh, the pop-up and over!
That was
Querney
tough.
almost got it, but That I was gonna say they're actually in a decent spot. Was T-Rex? They finished the fight. They had a res there. I don't think they expected a team to rotate in this. I don't think anybody would expect a team to rotate in this late. So certainly not the way T-Rex had envisioned that going.
I like that Game of Drones died to T-Rex, but then immediately after that, Dungeon Masters are like, hey, I heard you took our kills, and they rotate down, they take the kills right back, and hey, you know what? It's a funny series of events to have these guys following each other so closely. The fact that they rotate from the same place, obviously assisting in that, but definitely staying quite close together, and I don't think their rivalry is going to end here. These guys are going to go up against each other again and again, because if neither of you given up, you are really playing for the long game. As even now, camping the banners of T-Rex's squad, keeping Dippities out of range. Dungeon Masters are not giving up a single point, not leaving a single team at their back.
Yeah, you know, every time you see a kill go through, I mean, 15 squads this early is been very not normal, I think, for what we've seen throughout the day. So teams have been getting more aggressive, and that is playing more towards Dungeon Master's favor. So they're welcoming these early skirmishes to continue to go on. And I tell you what, Dia, when we looked at that zone, there's not many teams in Dorito around where Clean is, and there's still, I believe, 2 buildings available. The lack of teams there and the amount of teams that are in Lava Siphon, there's going to be some available real estate where if it does pull to that side, could be very beneficial to make one of those early rotations that we saw similarly from Clean when they see the zone isn't in their favor. I just want to know who's willing to commit that early and who has an idea of the landscape.
No Fear want that beacon scan so bad. You see them inching up right here to try and get the drone in range. I think they're going to be able to get it, but we know from afar that Clean's real estate is really paying off, and you talked about that early rotation already. A few teams have done it. Interestingly enough, though, off in the north, you can see that nobody's really willing to push down all the way because the zone hasn't cloned at their back just yet. Pew Pew is still hanging out with the squad of Fig Down, making sure that they control the choke that we know nobody's coming through.
Yeah, look, make no mistake about it. You're not getting any KP from there. It just doesn't happen. There's a couple of zones that do kind of pull towards near where that truck is right in the middle. So that would be a very long term if it works for you. But I really think that they're playing the long game, the safe game, and justifiably so, because you don't just walk down this hill ever. I'm just surprised that they haven't identified that there's a team, or there's no team in the Dorito building there, in the triangle building, for them to make their way in, or the 2-story, I should say. So there is still a spot for them to go in if they choose to.
What if they get the KP off of T-Rex, though? What if Dippities... There's actually a very small chance this guy has to play the really, really long game, the one that nobody's expecting. Certainly, nobody would expect that. The Rats, though, the team that nobody expected, they are the ones playing down over here by Geyser, also still inside of this next ring, and there's a chance that Zone pulls right in front of them as well, with some very, very harsh high ground to follow.
It's fun to see. I mean, we mentioned it last game. There are some zones that you just have to wait till round number 4 to really get an idea on how different that zone will pull. And some of them are much earlier. This is one. That hurt. That most certainly still has yet to be determined.
I've actually, since we've got a moment here, Jay-How, and we saw that longbow trade go down, I have a theory, and I want to see what you think about it, that Apex, there's this skill break where your confidence in hitting your shots can actually just win you 1v1s, because there's a point where you get hit and you start running away and you're like, nah, you're gonna die at that point. But sometimes if you keep challenging that 1v1, you end up winning it. And I think that's the school of thought we just saw was, you know what, I know I got hit, but I can hit him back.
Well, I mean, you're kind of cheating when you're a Jibby.
That's
you
true.
got that extra gun shield. It's like, I can take an extra hit. No, seriously, I can. Not necessarily cheating, you know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
When you're a Jibby, I think you're more comfortable taking those. I'm not a Jibby player, but if I were, I would definitely bite down a little bit harder and try on 1v1 for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You peek that one right back. SAC up here, not feeling themselves with the confidence of the Jibby. Instead, gonna loot up one last time, as they've still got, no, I don't want to say a ways to go until they reach next ring, but until they involve themselves in the game. It's sort of slowly shifting away from Lava Siphon right now, and you can see with no KP and not a whole heck of a lot of damage that it's mostly been about farming the teams that are way off in the distance, as they're doing right now. But SAC, they still need to put some serious points on the board, just I mean, like, for the sake of having a good, clean game, because relying on placement alone isn't going to get them very far anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, you can get by on a lot, but you can't just be placements. And we've seen teams that do prioritize placements and it's there, but you have to generate more off of it. And that's the clear distinction of teams, is some teams are going to be really good in terms of their gun game, maybe not so much in their decision-making and placement. Other teams are going to be on the opposite of the spectrum. It's the teams that can really balance those in terms of having good gun game, knowing when to push or when to get more. And thank you to Dungeon Masters, as we'll now get an idea on this next zone. And Dungeon Masters still in it.
Yeah, they're quite confident right now with their with where they gotta be. Odin, however, not nearly so much. They're taking a long rotation around. 44 seconds left is gonna have them running from the ring, most likely, and they're trying to play sort of odd off of this S choke that we talked about earlier. I think recognizing the ring is gonna go to the north. There is a zone that we've seen specifically in NA that really, really favors the cover that these trucks can give you, and that might be what Odin are banking on.
Oblast looking to make a push into the Dorito building, did find something to push off of. Now they're met with a Gibby ult, just do get the bubble down. See how hard they're willing to commit. With the zone now closing in 10 seconds, I think teams will look to third party this if they commit for too long, and I think wisely will retreat. But this is the zone I was talking about. I don't know why these buildings have not filled up as quickly, because I'm pretty sure the next building that is on the far northeastern part of this was the one that was open for quite some time. Normally you see a team already in there, and now that we have a look at this, this is exactly where it's pulling. I am surprised that more teams didn't read this as early, and now they'll just have to fight their way across out of Lava Siphon, maybe even filter through that bridge, making them potentially easy targets later.
Dungeon Masters have lost one in the meantime. It's just an arc star, so we'll see if that ends up getting followed up on its uprising, though. They did secure that kill, and now we get the third-party shot, and you can see we do have Fig Vam that have moved down into that building, so it actually will be occupied now, leaving not a whole heck of a lot of real estate behind for anybody else. I know that there is room for a few more squads all the way off in the eastern building. The larger one, you can play on top and you can play underneath, but it does get really risky. And still, even inside of this bridge, there are some areas that we're gonna need to see played, because the teams coming over from Lava Siphon do not have a place to go.
There's room for one team on the bridge. That's it. You do not survive more than one team on the bridge, which is why it's so crucial to get here. You mentioned the building with Fig Vam. A team can definitely exist on the ground floor there. It would take basically a Valk ult at this point to get there. Desperation call, but it is nice to see Fig Vam did make that. Here's one of the teams on the outside looking in. They'll have to fight their way, but I think the scariest part for Odin, the teams coming from Lava Siphon, not the teams directly in front of.
Yeah, because those guys are going to be running right past your front door, and there's not a whole lot of room that you have to see that without poking your head out and exposing yourself to a lot of other damage. Odin are trying to play these trucks right now to mitigate some of that risk, but you can already see on the highlights off to the side of your screen that there are several teams thinking about coming down through this low ground to find the rotation. Odin are not inside of the next ring either, and they might actually have to play under the bridge. Seems like right now they want to push up to the high ground, but these are some risky movements that are leaving them very out in the open.
They can play under the bridge, but you have to kind of get there late, just because you don't want to let the teams coming across shoot you underneath, or the teams that can play further north. That's the bigger risk, and I think that's what they're considering right now. And when you move in a little bit later, you eliminate those possibilities of teams coming in. Meanwhile, Uprising, they're fighting up at the top, already down Shadow. They're going to try and get an instant res. Not sure how well this will work out. Gibby ult as well. Oh, that battery did not go off. Oh, that battery did not go off, and that is rough. A problem.
Uprising now likely going to lose their final member as the push a little bit early ends up denying them the chance to play even more. Unfortunately, last game of the day means that they are not going to get to continue SAC involving themselves in the game as we had hoped that they would before. Well, FigVam, they end up sitting pretty far off. Nemesis have gotten themselves back into the game after what was a rough game 5, and now, woohoo, making it look good too. With this Hemlock cleaning up teams that are trying to get to the bridge, they should be able to claim this one all to themselves. With Seer, could be a really, really nice spot to hold. Looking for these last couple KP right now. They're going to be able to find it, and they own this South Coast.
I told you, one team can make it to the bridge. Nobody else. And that's what it looks like. Just funnel in and die. That's all that you can really do. Meanwhile, the real action, of course, is yet to be determined here on this side of the bridge, where teams that have been occupying these buildings have done so for a long period of time and have now put themselves in excellent late game position. Nemesis, by the way, has at least 10 KP, at least so far. That's a lot.
That's so ridiculously much, and they're making a push for one of those top spots. Want to put themselves inside of the top 5. We'll see if that is going to be enough for them, as they know as well there's a team under the bridge by virtue of the Seer, so definitely a lot of awareness coming from that passive to give them info on who they need to play around and who their biggest threats are. Will Clean still hold up in this building? They have yet to convert. Oh no,
there's a Kraber.
It's serious.
Serious with the Kraber. They finish that off too with an Arc Star. There's a zone that ends right west, or just west of that building that they are in, and yeah, this is the problem with playing underneath sight lines from the rest of the teams. But All Planned is the team that is within somewhat of a distance to make up on Clean, but now with 7 teams left, Clean is starting to get those placement points, potentially some KP soon, but looking to play on the roof is All Planned. They've gotten very aggressive moving forward.
Holy, and these Kraber shots, they just keep being so scary for these teams. You can see even Clean retreating up the stairs, almost eat one themselves, and a knock from that would likely take them out. All Planned, definitely a team that wants to take this fight, that wants to take you out, and they're actually, I think, trying to coexist down here. Ooh, Lord, that Kraber shot. It makes me hold my breath every single time. They cannot forget, however, that there are other teams that will look at this and want to third party. FigVam are right next to them, as are Nemesis, and both those teams want to get involved, want to get some more KP, especially if your Nemesis has already been doing so good. That is so massive,
and the shot!
It's a crack! Holy moly, Serious may have just won them this fight with that stick, and oh my lord. The knock is yet to come in. Clean are still holding strong, but now with Dolph falling, it should be the cleanup, and All Planned should be able to poke it in here, finish off that bio break that was being taken, and All Planned, they make quick work of Clean off of what was a very extended push.
Oh my god, Serious just erupted in there. Arc Star stick, Kraber shot, wingman shots, you name it, he did it. That was insane. Now down to 3 teams directly out in front of the bridge. So Nemesis, already with a fantastic game, have a chance to put the cherry on top. Meanwhile, All Planned could get a lot of KP and put themselves in contention going into this, but I gotta imagine that Clean has enough points, so All Planned already with the top 3 and KP look real good.
Yeah, they're at a point where they should qualify based off of today, but the question is, how far can they push in? Can they make those highs soar even higher as Nemesis? They're also fighting the same team that All Planned are looking down at. Both squads sort of collaborating in trying to take him out, but an Arc Star, a Betrayal Arc Star no less, is going to find its way into the bridge. As the defensive bombardment buys a little bit more space, Nemesis are finding they are instead the ones in what looks like a no-win scenario with Serious right behind them. They have lost a member though, and All Planned need to be real careful about overextending right now with their Gibraltar down.
All Plan getting real sneaky, serious, making some crazy Valkyrie plays. I don't know if he can survive for much longer. Does now going to play in the enemy bubble. That's going to be interrupted. The one seer in the game is going to cause you some issues. Nemesis with plenty of shields to have big cracks coming in here for Nemesis who need to push out and get some kills. Sirius now joined by the Loba. Here we go. Final 3 teams, 40 seconds left. Dia, send us home.
Nemesis can absolutely do this. They just need that one more nade, and it's a stick from Sirius over the top. It's All Plan fighting from the high ground as Nemesis full commit. All Plan could take this back. They could find the KP here at the very end, right outside of the dome. Nemesis are gonna find the wipe, but now Sirius, it's all up to him. He's done it before, and he will not do it again. Nemesis find the clutch, find the win, and take us out of the preseason qualifiers on a high.
Woo! If you're gonna go out on a game, man, Nemesis just went out on one heck of a game there, and they did it with a seer. That's not something we've been saying a lot during these qualifiers. A couple months ago would have been an entirely different story, but what a game there by Nemesis to close it out. All Planned making a top 3. Dungeon Masters likely securing their spot. A couple of teams did it here, I think, today. A lot of teams definitely did it throughout the day, but when teams needed to perform to control their own destiny, those teams did it. As far as the rest of the teams, Dia, I'm going to wait till somebody else hands me something that says these are the teams, because I can't even begin to fathom the amount of shuffling that happened today. But the teams that needed to get those top performances in Dungeon Masters and All Planned, I think they did it.
Yeah, Dungeon Masters All Planned. Even Nemesis, who I know had to collect a few points, although they should have been secured, definitely are after this game. And I'm really looking forward to seeing who our sort of top 20 are. I know that we already know the winners from the weeks gone past. 69 IQ, Major Pushers, Kick, all of those likely going to be joined by Clean on the day. We're technically waiting for people to do math, but we can take some educated guesses. And then after that, we saw a lot of really good performances today in the finals that I think give me a lot of hope for what these teams are going to bring to the Pro League, because I sort of cast my mind back to Preseason Qualifier 1, and, well, nobody can take away from 69 IQ. They absolutely deserve that win. I also think that it's undeniable that the quality of game, that the quality of these teams has definitely taken big boosts from qualifier to qualifier, and this was some of the best gameplay that we've seen, and I don't think it's by accident, J-How.
Well, when you look at the turnover that we had from week 1 to week 2, there was some serious shuffling going on in those teams, but then we started to see more consistent nature of the teams that we expected to be there, teams that were always there, but then the teams that now all of a sudden from one week to another week, all of a sudden they're like, all right, we're starting to get a feel for this. We're starting to get our feet underneath us. And we definitely saw some improvements from these teams that all of a sudden had that, they got their feet wet, they got here, and they started to improve. It's undeniable that teams got better over these 4 weeks, and now we get to take a look and see how it did in totality.
All right, so off of Game 6 alone, Nemesis had an almost 30-point game. Massive for them. From the first time we saw this team, and they were the only team running Seer, I'll be honest, J-How, I had my doubts, but Preseason Qualifier 4, what a way to go out, and All Planned right behind them, 19 points.
Big Vam, by the way, the team that was up on top of the hill that controlled that choke, ended up getting pretty good placement in positioning. They ended up making their way down the hill. I think they were kind of lucky to get there. They did a really good job of gatekeeping the north side. We didn't get to see exactly when they made it down, but it worked out for them for a 12-point game. That's nothing to scoff at for them. Another team that's going to be in. So our top 3 teams clearly dominated this lobby, but what a performance overall in these teams that really fought hard.
Yeah, and we were talking about that sort of experience that comes with showing up in the preseason qualifiers. I think it's worth pointing out that our bottom 3 teams this very last game were the teams that hadn't been in a finals before. No knock on them. Rats, Game of Thrones, and Illuminari all had their big moments. Ooh. But we can see that right now on the board in front of you, as you can see where they ended up, but you can also see where our big winners of the day finished.
When you win 3 games, of course, you're going to be the front runner. All Planned tried to get within that to secure their spot. No matter what they're in, they would have liked to have come out first place, but no matter how they got there, those teams are going to be ecstatic to be there. Of course, all the familiar faces from 1 through 5 are all there, clean, all playing Dungeon Masters, Nemesis, the teams that we expected to be there, dead inside. But it's Rats, I think, one of the more surprise performances today. Lucky that they were to get here so we could kind of introduce them to their potential future. They'll have some work to do potentially through the Challenger League, but a great showing for them to kind of come in here on the final week.
I'm super excited for what they bring. As they shouldn't have qualified off points for the Pro League, but very clearly have a lot of talent, and I think that they can't be underestimated, especially once that Challenger circuit starts to contest for some spots in Pro League, starts to look at international competition. I expect Rats to be there, and I expect them to perform in a big way. We'll be looking at Clean there as well, as we've got a bunch of folks to send off to the Pro League. It has been a joy, a pleasure to be able to cover the teams that are making it into EMEA's professional circuit. Jay Howe, it's our very last broadcast for EMEA, so I think we got to send him off with congratulations to all the qualified teams, to all the teams that have had first place, and just to make sure that you get those last 16 teams, check up. I know that Apex will be posting the results, the exact points, but we should have most of them already.
Yeah, I'm going to be keeping my eyes on Twitter. I know they'll be up somewhere on the EA page eventually. Probably a little longer to get a little quicker to get a graphic up as opposed to an entire website up. So we'll look for that graphic, I'm sure, here soon on their social medias. I, for one, am excited to see who the other teams were. I tell you what, man, EMEA has produced some of the highest quality games that we've seen in terms of every single game, week in and week out. We've seen similar performances in NA. So you can pinpoint certain teams, but the amount of other teams that have performed over these 4 weeks, I'm very eager to see, and congratulations to those teams. It's been an absolute pleasure on my end. I know you've enjoyed it as well, Dia, but for me personally, I want to thank the EMEA group for putting together all the games. We still have NA to go. I'm looking forward to that as well, but man, what a fun 4 weeks this has been for EMEA.
Yeah, really incredible stuff. And for those of you that aren't done with competitive Apex just yet, you heard Jay Howe say it, we've got North American preseason qualifiers happening in just a few hours, so be sure to tune back here because they will be right here on Game Time. And Jay Howe, you and I will be back to cover some of those, so I'm excited. I'm going to send us off. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.